Happy Valentine's Day. Good morning, everyone. It is 6:30. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station on Friday, February 14th, 2020. It's 36 degrees under broken clouds, I should say, along the Sound Shore. Today, sunny and windy. The temperature will be 29. Tonight, it's going to get a little colder, but we'll be back with the weather in just a little bit. Let's take a look at the headlines and something that actually was happening late last night. But Radio Westchester has information that the new mayor of Mount Vernon called out the controller once and for all yesterday. Video exists of her calling her out on monies not properly spent, money needed from the state not taken, and so forth. We'll be talking about that and see who can get on the program later on. Now, one source told us that she had to be escorted from City Hall. That is the controller in Mount Vernon. In New Rochelle, the worker who was electrocuted 2 days ago has been identified. And in a computer scam, 7 from Ramapo plead guilty. They face prison and thousands of fines. In Mount Vernon, talk about thousands of fines. Well, in Mount Vernon, a man is sentenced for running a heroin and fentanyl operation. On a national level, Mr. Barr, the Attorney General, is practically begging the president not to tweet. Are there mixed motives there? We'll be talking about that. This is the one and only Radio Westchester, and it is time for the weather. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. All right, as we said, it's 36 degrees right now under broken clouds, but it will get sunny today and windy. The temperature 29. Tonight, though, clear skies. We know you like that. For Valentine's Day, in fact, for Valentine's Day, it's good that it's a little chilly. It will draw you closer to your other half. The temperature will be 10 degrees tonight, up 1 from our predictions all week. So 10 degrees. Tomorrow warming up a little bit. Saturday, sunny. The temperature 30 degrees. The wind out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Now on Sunday, we'll get more sunshine with a high of 44 degrees. Things warm up a bit in the overnight low. 31. That's much better than 10. And on to Monday, mostly sunny skies, a high of 46. So hopefully we have seen we've seen the end of the rain. Let's hope so. And that is the weather for this Valentine's Day. Let's get into the news. Now, the story that we mentioned to you earlier, we only have so much information based on video we were able to capture late last night. But essentially, after all that has gone on in Mount Vernon and the controller's role in many ways taking down the previous mayor, lots of questions remain. But yesterday, the current mayor, in a diatribe facing the controller, and it was taped. I don't know if it was taped surreptitiously or not, but I've seen the tape, so I can speak to it, calling out the controller for money that should have been used, that the state was making available to the city, bills not paid, and so forth, and just calling out the controller. We don't know where that'll lead. We will try and get someone on the show this morning, but this is an issue that we have covered as best as we could. Sooner or later, something had to give. And we still don't know at this stage who's right and who's wrong. All we've ever said is this controller is either hero or perhaps not. Maybe we will finally find out. But once again, drama in Mount Vernon involving that city's elected controller. In New Rochelle, a Bronx man has been identified. Boy, my eyes are blurry this morning. Was it my glasses? Pardon me. A Bronx man has been identified as the worker who died after being electrocuted here in the city on Wednesday. This in Low HUD. Alejandro Manuel Caswaguano, 26, police, he has another name here. Please pardon me, sir. Wherever you may be, 26 years old, who was killed while working at a construction site at 164 Union Avenue. Police was in a cherry picker working on the building's exterior when he accidentally hit high voltage wires shortly before 2:30 p.m. Evidently, as the cherry picker was moving up or down, we're not certain here, it caught onto the wire. And then as the insulation split, he was electrocuted. The New Rochelle Buildings Department and the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, those are the OSHA people, they are investigating as we speak. Again, Alejandro Manuel Casuaguano, Palisa 26, killed here in New Rochelle. We turn our attention to Ramapo now. Nearly 4 years after hundreds of FBI agents and law enforcement officers raided Ramapo businesses and private schools, 7 Rockland residents have pleaded guilty to conspiring to steal millions. And you know from whom? A federal program designed to provide computer technology to the schools. And here we go. Prosecutors got guilty pleas from those 7, and they've been charged with conspiracy, etc. And here they are, to conspiracy from Peretz Klein and his wife Susan Klein, both of Spring Valley, and 5 Muncie residents, Simon Goldbrenner, Moishe Schwartz, Ben Klein, Shalom Steinberg, and Aaron Melbar. Each person pleaded guilty to 1 count of a conspiracy to commit wire fraud. They faced a statutory maximum sentence of 5 years, paying restitution, and a potential $250,000 fine. U.S. Judge Kenneth Karras will decide their final sentence. And again, that's based on lots of things we shall see. Pardon me, it is 6:38. We turn our attention now to Mount Vernon once again, where a man there was sentenced to 8 years in prison for crimes tied to a major operation in the city and involving the Bronx as well. This out of Lowhead. Keith Holler, 57, was a major trafficker in heroin and fentanyl. This according to the Westchester County DA's office. Holler was one of 11 men arrested on April 11, 2019 during an early morning drug sweep. He had been accused of being one of 2 leaders of the Daniels Controlled Substances organization. So the DCSC collected more than $75,000 from selling these drugs, which were packaged and stamped with a red smiley face logo. Packaging and marketing is important, folks. It is 6:39. Once again, we have lots of news this morning, so that's what we do before the 7 o'clock hour. Welcome once again to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. It is 36 degrees and overcast. It will be sunny today, though, but cold. And we continue. The body of an 80-year-old man was found at a park in Westchester Wednesday morning. This in News 12. Officials said the body of the man was found by someone walking his dog at the Wilson Woods Park in Mount Vernon. They say there were no visible signs of trauma. The name has not been released. That is the name of the deceased. The county medical examiner is examining the cause of death. The cause of death. It is 6:39. We go now to Sarah Lawrence and the problems there. This from Lowhead. A domineering ex-convict moves into his daughter's campus, college apartment, and insinuates himself into the lives of not her friends at one of the country's toniest colleges. As you know, he went on to befriend them, recruit them, allegedly now in prostitution and other things. He has officially been charged with sex and extortion. And this is a story that is going to be alive for some time. The indictment lists as victims as females 1, and then 1, 2, and 3, and then male victims 2 and 3. And wow, keep your eye on that story. Now, Bernard Carrick, who it was reported earlier knows this man in a related story, has spoken out. And he said, and he did so on the Joe Piscopo show down on AM 970, The Answer, in New York City, and told guests that guest host Frank Morano, if you took or look up a psychopath in the dictionary, this guy's face would be there. He has victimized everybody from me and my family, he said. So we shall see. As you know, Carrick's New York City former police commissioner, what a paradoxical guy, was sent to prison himself over tax evasion, charges in a case bolstered by the testimony of Ray, who was best man at Carrick's wedding. The police commissioner, certainly the former police commissioner, has quite the shady past, eh? A Portchester third grader has missed 3 weeks of school this semester, and her mother says it's because no district will take her. This reported in News 12 last night. Melissa Pugnatelli says her daughter Sophia was kicked out of Park Avenue Elementary School because the district says she doesn't live in the town. Meanwhile, Pugnatelli claims she and her 2 children live with her mom blocks from her daughter's now former school. She told News 12 it all started about 2 years ago when the Portchester School District began looking into the residency of Sophia. She denies the claim that they just list her mother's house as the child's residence. And right now, they're having trouble getting her in a school. It seems that they don't believe wherever she says she lives. And as we get a resolution to that story, we'll keep you informed. It is 6:42. Now, as you know, Westchester County lawmakers gave themselves 52% raises to kick off the new year. But now a federal lawsuit is asking a court to say not so fast, this story in LoHUD. Members of a group who say they are pro-Constitution, everybody's pro-Constitution and they probably haven't read it, filed a lawsuit in federal court Wednesday suing to reverse 265 non-union raises in 2020. The suit also seeks to nix a nearly $30,000 raise taken by Harrison supervisor Ron Belmont in the town budget that boosted his pay to $185,000 a year. And according to the people filing the lawsuit, quote, this is a case involving a ruling class led by a small power elite that has turned a blind eye to the supreme law of the state in bestowing increases upon themselves. The suit was filed by one Anthony Futia Jr., a North White Place resident, and one Robin Schultz, who heads the group, We the People New York Incorporated. They've been involved in various legal challenges, including a suit against New York's SAFE Act gun law. So we shall see. Now, they seem serious. They probably have indeed read the Constitution, or not. One never knows. We turn to Poughkeepsie now. A story out of News 12. A 16-year-old was shot on Garden Street there early Thursday morning. First responders found the male teen shot in the arm and rushed him to the hospital. He is in serious condition, but his wounds are not considered to be life-threatening. If you drive a Ford, listen up. They are scheduled to recall 240,000 vehicles for suspension problems. Ford will recall 240,000 vehicles now, and this from a consumer watchdog. They accused, I can't even go there. Anyway, you're going to get a notification on March 2nd, so be on the lookout if you own a Ford. And I jumped ahead to another related story about clothes. A consumer watchdog accused Rihanna's lingerie brand, savaged by Fenty, of deceptive advertising. How do you deceive selling lingerie? I mean, this should have been a day she was making lots of money. All right, we're going to take a quick break for the news. It's 15 minutes in, or rather for the weather, and to thank some sponsors. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about more and more people are taking silent retreats, obviously doing so with the hope of getting away from our political situation. Also, we'll talk about hope for a no-bail fix, the fact that there's actually more crime now on the west side of Manhattan. John Poderetz wrote a pretty good piece about it. And also, William Barr says the president, with his tweeting, is making it hard for him to do his job. Mitch McConnell also is agreeing with that. And it seems almost as if a coordinated event to kind of show that, hey, we can stand up to the president. That can't be a bad thing, but if it's just for show, it probably can't be a good thing either. It is 6:45, actually 6:48 now. We need to take another look at the weather, and the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. It is presently 36 under broken clouds. As we move through the day, it'll be sunny, but windy, getting down to 29. A cold but nice winter day tonight. A colder winter evening. The temperature will be 10 degrees. The wind out of the north, the 5 to 15. Thank God, no heavy gusts. Saturday, sunny. The temperature 30 degrees. The wind out of the south, 5 to 10. Sunny, or rather Sunday, but here's why we messed up those words, because it will be a sunny Sunday. The high getting up to 44. Nice day. Overnight low 31. Better than the 10 degrees it was or will be tonight. Monday, mostly sunny skies. The high will be 46 degrees. The overnight low will be 29. We'd like to thank our sponsors this morning for the bottom of the hour. It is, of course, they are, of course, United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit UHDC.com. Plug in virtual reality, aging issues management, and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Kahn, and Dominic's Fine Cigars, who will bring you at 8 a conversation with Jake Schaefer, his prognostications, or at least forcing me to prognosticate hockey scores. And we'll be talking still more about some of the local scores, which we'll give you in a little while, but more importantly about the baseball scandal. Then we're going to meet with a new, or not a new, but a long-standing restaurant with a good reputation, the people who own the Raymond Joint in downtown. I call it the Raymond Joint. We'll say more about that later on, in downtown New Rochelle. So let's get into the rest of those stories. We just found this interesting. Yesterday in my monologue, I was moaning about how politics has been getting to me, which is true. And a lot of people who do what I do are complaining about the same thing. Well, this story goes as thus out of Lohud. Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, not Sansu, but Lao Tzu, once said silence is a source of great strength. Well, particularly if you're playing cards. We know he never had to deal with the cacophony of TVs, humming appliances and stuff, but what this story is about, and one can understand it, is more and more people are going to retreats, getting themselves out with the birds and the trees and learning meditation. In fact, we'll be asking, once she comes on with us this morning at 7:35, Janelle Albritton, Master of Public Health, deals a lot with wellness, just what these stories are about. But one place, and then this is a Buddhist place at Omega in Rhinebeck, silence has always been a part of the curriculum. But yet today, this is Valentine's Day, so you don't want to be silent. You want to be sure to say, I love you, and you also want to be sure to not be silent with your wallet. Gifts, flowers, chocolate. And for the boys, for the men, and I'm talking about, I realize this is just personal. All you got to do is show up. It's gift enough. It looks like the Democrats in the state Senate are looking to fix last year's botched criminal justice reform, said an editorial in the Post, but it's based on a lot of basic factual information. Most importantly, our own state senator here, or at least the leader, the largest voice in the Senate as the leader, and the largest voice here in Westchester County, Andrea Stewart Cousins, has corralled 8 of our colleagues are on the right track. They're trying to persuade the Assembly to go along. The Assembly, of course, has been kind of resistant to that. We suspect owing their electoral future to the hard left in New York, of which there are many. John Poderhutz in the Post yesterday wrote a very interesting piece about the Upper West Side of Manhattan and how, as a child, he was mugged 4 times. Other people in his area were assaulted, mugged, raped, etc. As Tony, as you may think of that part of the city, but this is before we started to crack down on crime and fix up the city. And he says that is starting all over again. Now, he says it won't go to a point that is as bad as the 70s or early 80s, but that he's seeing the beginning of it. And in his view, it is... you can date it back to the election of the current mayor, Bill de Blasio. And in one of those stories, and I hate this line, this is a cliche, but it's true that everyone in the political and media world is talking about. Attorney General William Barr on Thursday rebuked President Donald Trump for publicly commenting on sensitive investigations, but insisted that the Justice Department had acted appropriately after an extraordinary falling out with career prosecutors who had handled the case of Roger Stone earlier this week. In an interview with ABC News, Barr provided a robust defense of the department's rank and file and said Trump's online missives made it impossible to do his job. He said, and we quote, "I cannot do my job here at the department with a constant background commentary that undercuts me." Now, there have been some pieces this morning that are suggesting that this is reasonably calculated, especially considering the fact that now Mitch McConnell has come out to say the same thing. But whatever their motivation, that seems to us as a good thing. But once again, I think they're trying to take the sting out of the fact that it makes the president look kind of like a dictator. Doesn't mean that he is yet, but that image cannot help them in the upcoming elections. Meanwhile, speaking of the president, John Kelly has let loose on President Trump. The former chief of staff explained in the clearest terms yet his misgivings about Trump's behavior regarding North Korea, immigration, and the Ukraine. In over a 75-minute speech at a college, at a local college, in his defense of Colonel Vindman, particularly saying that man was just doing his job. That's what he's paid to do. He's paid to look at possible risks and threats and did nothing wrong. To wit, a guy with whom he was a very serious adversary, a rival, John Bolton, has supported Mr. Kelly's claims. And we've got another story. Let's go back to the flu before we get into sports. And that's right, the flu, not the coronavirus. This came out in a number of outlets today. New York is facing its worst flu season in decades, while the international public health focus remained affixed to the new coronavirus that remained largely contained in China. There so far here in New York have been 17,233 cases of the flu. It was the second highest weekly total since 1998-99. Now, this was the week ending February 8th. Again, 17,233. That's a huge number. So far, and here's the total number, there have been 106,000. So let's summarize that. 106,000, 18,000 during the week of February 8th. And last week, some 2,000, almost 2,000 were actually hospitalized with the illness. Again, I go back to our top story. I find it so intriguing that the new mayor, even after sitting here, and one of the few times that we're supporters of the new mayor, we want her to do well over in Mount Vernon. But when she was in here, she said, well, I have a good relationship with the controller. And our answer was, hey, it's not about your relationship with him. It's about whether she does her job. You can love her, you can hate her. She has been at the center of controversy throughout Mayor Richard Thomas's reign, and certainly did much, or for good or ill, we don't know, to undermine that mayor. But now the new mayor's own frustrations have peaked, and we have reviewed video that shows her totally calling out the controller to the point where things got not out of hand. That would be unfair, but let's just say it was upsetting enough where it appeared that the controller was escorted out of City Hall. So we'll find out what we can find out. Now, coincidentally, not related to that, we have heard from the mayor's people. She's ready to come back on with us, and we're very happy that she is. And just from an editorial point of view, for good or ill, we are pleased, whether or not it shows that the controller is right or wrong, that this mayor is calling out the controller. But once again, we remind you that the controller of the state of New York and every other governing body, and we have seen the documents when the previous mayor tried to have her work audited and tried to call them out, it fell on deaf ears. So we will learn more, I guess as you do, when we get a hold of other professionals. Let's turn our way to sports right now. The Rangers were losing last night when they got a free goal. I guess they needed a break, but then that led to them tying the game and eventually defeating the Minnesota North Stars by a score of 4-3. Arturi Panarin getting yet another goal and 75 points thus far in a mere half of a season, or a little more than half of a season. Meanwhile, the Devils, after giving up one goal in the center period, scored 4 in the third, and they defeated the Detroit Red Wings by a score of 4-1 last night at the Rock. That's the nickname for, well, actually it's the real name because they're sponsored by Prudential, but that is their arena name in Newark, New Jersey. And the Islanders turned in a clunker last night. They were defeated by the Nashville Predators by a score of 4-0. And if you're wondering, hey, where is Joe Girardi? Well, I think most people know now that he took over the job in the Philadelphia Phillies organization. He's the manager there. And his shortstop, by the way, is Didi Gregorius, one of the most important Yankees of the last few years. And he does believe that he will be returning to pre-surgery numbers. And if anything is said about Didi Gregorius, these two things stand out. He had the impossible task, but succeeded at succeeding, if you will, the great Derek Jeter, now in the Hall of Fame, of course, or will be one. He is actually sworn in, or whatever the term we should use, but also was a terrific presence in their clubhouse. So between Mr. Girardi and Mr. Gregorius, what fine leadership the Philadelphia Phillies will have. And we look forward to that for him. Meanwhile, something that fell on deaf ears yesterday were attempts by the management and some of the players of the Astros to try and apologize without apologizing. And as the New York Post put it this morning, that was even worse. Jim Crane should have arrived at the Astros Thursday press conference wearing a suit jacket covered with dollar signs. And, this is the way the paper put it, and reveal a lining with $50 million that winning the 2017 World Series was worth to the franchise. I didn't realize that the number was that much. I don't know if you did, but that if you win a World Series, it could bring in that much revenue. That is extraordinary, $50 million. Anyway, that at least would have been sincere, said Joel Sherman, rather than the contrition performance art put on by the Astros owner and those remaining from the tainted 2017 squad. They all met Wednesday night to plan what to say when meeting reporters. Meanwhile, Altuve denies that he had the buzzer on and pins blame on a fake Twitter account. We obviously will never know. It's 6:55. And we're going to do something for a day because, again, we've been working with our phone system and we're not very happy about it. But, again, we've got to get it fixed because when you call us on our regular call-in line, and it's been a guest-filled week anyway, we can't hear you, and we don't know why. And we're in touch with our provider, and I'm sure we'll have it fixed over the weekend. So we're going to give out a number, and if you people are smart enough, you will write it down. It is our hotline that we normally use for guests. So we're going to give it out only during open phone segments, but when we have guests, we're going to ask you to keep it aside. But we are going to open the phones now. And the phone number that you should call just today only, 914-999-4006. That's 999-4006. 999-4006 if you'd like to join the conversation. This is Radio Westchester. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. righty. And as we open up the telephones, we have a few things to say and to talk about vis-a-vis that. Remember, this morning, the phone number is 999-4006, 999-4006. I just got a text from someone who's out running this morning and listening on their phone. And what I remind you is how you can access us. Again, if you're listening, you obviously have, but there are many more ways than you're probably aware of. You can go to MyTuner Radio. There are a couple of sub-apps there. One, mornings with Bob Marrone. The other, and you'll see my little funny-looking face there in blue and yellow icon, a blue and yellow icon. And then also RadioWestchester.com. And as many of you do, because we get the feedback, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope, and, of course, iHeartRadio, and... There's so many. There's so many. I know there's another one, but it'll come to me. Anyway, welcome to the program and do that. And to all of you who may be out running, male, female, whatever, or however you identify yourselves. This holiday, of course, for lovers or hopeful lovers, a happy Valentine's Day to you. Now, please, and this is very busy people, men and women, and it's generally men who tend to be a little late to do this. Get out early. Don't be one of those people running around the super drugstore tonight saying, oh, my God, I didn't get anything. I better get the chocolate. Or if you're traveling, and we now are all over the planet, if you're listening to us out west, or you're listening to us down south, or up in the upper Midwest, or in Canada, wherever you are, get out early. If you're traveling, get it now. Don't wait until the plane lands tonight. Maybe it's late, and you get in, and you're running like a mad person. It is a very difficult thing. And we will take our very first call. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. Thank you for calling. Hold on. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, wait, I forgot to put you on. I'm all discombobulated here. I hope you're still there. Or did I hang up on you? I hope I didn't hang up on you. Good morning. Thank you for calling.
Hello.
Hi, Anthony. Good morning. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
Hey, Bob, you had the big story was Mount Vernon, but you missed the one I sent you last night.
It shows. Well, let me see. Maybe I did. Hold on. Oh, is this the story about the jury person who made?
Yeah, not just the person, the forewoman.
Yeah, the forewoman. Well, if that's the case, that she was biased, they should declare a mistrial and start over. Absolutely, I agree with you. I'd like to know more about it.
How about perjury for lying on the interview for the jury?
Hey, if she lied, I just said it. The guy deserves a new trial. Now, why did they continue is the question, and William Barr has every right to follow up on that. Absolutely. Now, I looked all over the papers. I saw your story, and I wanted to look into it a little further, and I haven't had the chance. I got your story late last night, and I'm glad you reminded me. My reaction was, well, if this can be verified, well, man, damn it, the guy's entitled to a new trial, or the judge needs to answer why not.
See, this is interesting, Bob, because even today you made a comment about Barr's statement.
Yes.
Questioning whether it was calculated.
Yes.
Okay. And now you're saying if you can verify a story that I sent you that's been verified through video clips on her social media page.
Again, I can only...
You're saying if verified. And isn't it interesting how none of the major news outlets are running with this? It's only that horrendous Fox News.
Well, you know what? Then they should get credit for doing that. Again,
I don't want to give them credit. They don't deserve credit because they're doing their job. It's the other networks that aren't.
But again, what have you done any additional? Again, because I saw it late last night through bleary eyes, I almost forgot about it. But you're absolutely right. But again, it needs to be verified and checked out. I don't trust Fox News. But I do trust you.
I guess you don't trust the clips from her own
bear
page.
With me.
Bear
with me.
Since she has now taken down.
Well, you know what? I trust you. So that makes a big difference. So I will further look into this. It can't just be coming from one side. But the real issue here isn't even what the underlying facts were. The real issue here is even what Barr said. The president's got to stop doing it because it makes him look like a dictator.
I've been saying that from day one.
No, I know you have. You don't have to defend that. You always go there.
That doesn't bother me. I said that from day one. But the problem is, for every, and I'll put the win in quotes, that he gets, it just empowers him to tweet more.
It does. And now Mitch McConnell came out this morning. I don't know if you saw that. He, too, and it's got to be difficult for these people who are trying to be loyal to the president. He undermines them, too, Anthony. But your point is well taken, and I will look further into that story. Again, you sent it very late, or I was late last night going between I got this story that woke me up about Mount Vernon, and so my apologies for it. It did slip my mind.
There's no apologies.
No.
If it was you can bet your sweet patootie. Okay.
Thank you for saying that. Is that wait a minute?
If it was the other way around, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, they would all have it.
And AG Anthony Galletta's radio would have it. AGR.
Yeah, no, absolutely. News is news. But my point is, you have to give some credence.
Yes, you do.
To the fake news mantra.
Anthony, I hate it. It kills me. But I'm going to say it, and you make a good wife one day. You're right. Oh God. Someone come in and shoot me now.
I'll expect my flowers to be delivered later.
How you feeling this morning? We worry about you.
I've been up. I had 8 hours yesterday down in the hospital there with my stepdad. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. But that's got to be rough on your spine and all the things you're going through there. We got to get you a new spine.
Believe me, I traded in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I bet you. What, are you still wearing the collar?
Well, I have no choice now because when I sit up, well, if I'm in a couch or something, it's okay because I can put my head back. But if anytime I'm perfectly vertical, but I got to be careful because you can't wear it too long because then the muscles deteriorate in the neck.
I do. I've been there.
By the way, dependent on it. So.
I want to thank you for walking into one, which you rarely do. You're usually more cautious than that. But you standing vertical shouldn't put a lot of pressure on anything.
Well, you got to understand, I have a little more girth than you.
Yeah, yes, you do.
I can poke fun at myself.
I know you can. People don't know that about you. Hey, you know what you haven't done? I was telling somebody about this. Maybe it was a month ago, and you and I have one of our times when we get the sticks up, and I was telling someone who called and said, "You really don't know this guy." He says he writes poems. He can cry on the air. You're an interesting character. There are a lot of sides to you, Anthony. Have you written anything lately?
I've been called a character for many different
people. Yes, by judges, and
I think it was Tim Idoni said it's very apropos that I was born on March 15th, the Ides of March.
Oh, that's right, tomorrow. Oh, thank you.
No, March 15th. Wake up. Oh, yeah. You're a month away.
You know what it is? I had to fill out something last night, and I even put 70 down already, and I got a whole nother month to go. God. It's closing in on me, Anthony, like walls.
You'll be at 70. I'll be the official upstate speed limit.
No. Hey, in Pennsylvania, I was driving through Pennsylvania not that long ago. They have a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I've been out there. Yep. And first of all, speed limit doesn't mean anything these days with the cars that are out there. The flow of traffic is 75. So.
Hey, so by the way, let me just go to this. I love to gloat in those rare occasions when I can. That story that I mentioned this morning, isn't it apropos that all of a sudden the new mayor now is looking through the things that this controller did that really helped drive Richard Thomas out of office?
But you know what, Bob? I mean, for this many mayors to have a problem with the position of controller, their charter really needs to be revised.
Absolutely. But... you had to see. In fact, I'll forward it to you. And I don't know if the film was taken surreptitiously, but it's verifiable. Here, the mayor is saying, and what about this $1.some million we didn't get from the state because you didn't file? And what about these bills that haven't been paid? And when Richard Thomas was saying things like that, he was branded.
They had the big scandal with the HUD money, wasn't it? HUD money, I believe.
Oh, there's more in that town. That town in that way is a mess.
Bob, I don't know if I ever told you, my father is from Mount Vernon. We would eat Sunday dinner on South Fifth Avenue every Sunday. I know Memorial Field like the back of my hand. I know the Lincoln intersection there where Johnny's Pizza is. That was some town. That was some town at one point in time. They used to play the high school game, the Turkey Bowl, the Rochelle, Iona,
I've read
at
about
Memorial Field. I worked 1 block from Memorial Field. That was where the station was, 30 years.
Okay.
So that town, the way it's deteriorated is an absolute sin. It's I just can't even describe it.
And
it was, it's insane. It was a beautiful town. There was a lot of community spirit, and now it just seems like the Keystone Cops, they can't shoot straight.
Yeah, well, I'm hopeful that, and I was really pleased to see the mayor call out the comptroller. Now, as you always got to, we don't know what we don't know, obviously. And if the woman's a hero, fine, let's get to the bottom of it. But once and for all, let's get to the bottom of it. Now,
you'll never get to the bottom of it as long as Reggie Lafayette is in power.
I was thinking the same thing, and the question though is why, and or is the larger question that the Democrats have such a stronghold that I whine and whine about totalitarianism. It comes in many forms.
Well, it is what it is. There are people that vote Democrat, because of what they did 40 years ago.
I know. Well, yeah, that's true.
As opposed to what they represent today.
The old Union folks who were
and it works both ways. Republicans too. I don't want to make it sound.
That's okay.
I'm referring to Mount Vernon, which is highly Democratic. Probably, I would say, 60 to 70% at least Democratic, and they're not doing right by their own. That's the bottom line. And
I'm so glad every week when A.J. Woodser comes on and calls them on it. He said it's tribal, it's self-destructive what they do.
It is, and that's my point. Reggie's the chief.
It's amazing. I kind of put it together over the last year that he had been a city clerk there and then a head of the party. And but I can tell in conversations that I have with elected officials that the Democrats in this county are afraid of him.
You tell me what other town you can dump dirt, whatever it was, and that wasn't even dirt. It was contaminated product there at Memorial Field, and no one has a clue who, how, where, when, or why.
Well, Ernie Davis, I do believe, was quoted as saying, "I shook somebody's hand, but I don't remember."
Yeah, but that's my point. I don't remember. I don't remember the circumstances. I don't remember if anybody got paid. I don't remember if there was a contract. I don't remember. I don't remember. And nobody went to jail.
No, nobody went to jail.
And they took millions from the county to rehab Memorial Field. Mm-hmm. Millions.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes by the wayside. And then you wonder why people don't want politicians, so I don't want to elect politicians.
I know. It's just, I don't know where we're going to go. And it looks like we're headed to having two New York billionaires beat each other up over it. Wow.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that the party who's railing on the one percenters now are looking for a one percenter to be their candidate?
Yeah, it's always the way it is. Well, you know what I wanted to add to my monologue, but since you called, I took it right away. Just to be fair in calling out people. Now, as I've said on the air, to the consternation of many on the right, I have written to Michael Bloomberg's people, offered to go to work for them, offered to put the station on for whatever my own peculiar beliefs are. And I wrote a very lengthy letter, and I went on their official website to apply. And guess what I've heard from them? Crickets, bupkis. Because you know what? I always have to remind myself, and I'm glad it was crickets because it reminded me of the absolute truth of it. No matter Democrat, Republican, whatever, it's who you know. It's do you have any juice? What can you do for me? And so a heartfelt, sincere letter. What do I get? Crickets, because I'm just, as are you and the rest of us, but at least people like you and I speak up. We're just one more little pawn in their bigger game.
Somebody read your letter and laughed. Who is this schmuck?
Yeah.
Calling this billionaire, tell him that thinks that he needs his help.
Well, I just wanted right, and then I was, to put my livelihood on hold because I thought it was important enough. That used to be what made this country great.
Let's talk about hypocrisy and somebody who rails on capitalism, and which is the very system that made him his multimillionaire with 14 homes or whatever he's got, Bernie.
Well, all of them, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's nobody in the Senate that's starving, last time. And the thing that even when you and I were debating Obamacare back in the day, the thing that irked both of us was the men and women who were deciding what we would get were on that very generous U.S. elected official pension plan and weren't going to be subject to the very thing that they gave us.
This just in, after her striking loss, Liz Warren has declared that she wants a redo on her DNA test.
Did it. Wait, let me do the, hold on, let me give it a...
Whatever.
Anthony, thank you. You made my morning, and
You
kudos
got
to you for pointing that out. All righty, folks. See, now, I know I'm a broken record, folks. This is going on in a couple of minutes, but folks, now Anthony and I, over the years, have gotten hockey sticks up. We've thrown, I know I use these metaphors, thrown the gloves off, thrown a couple of shots. But what the country needs, but we agree on a lot of stuff. We need to start finding the things that we have in common. We need to start admitting those things that even those that we would profess to help or engage philosophically, we need to admit those things, and we need to see our place in this. Again, I wrote this and I've put it on the air, and I have no problem announcing my own hypocrisy. Here I am, he's the man. Did I get a call back? Of course not. But one thing I will say, I've said this many times, as much as I admire certain things about Michael Bloomberg, I've always said he has a cult of personality that is not based on winning elections, that is even more powerful than Donald Trump's. And so, as Shakespeare wrote in many of his missives, the courtiers were always worse than the king. In fact, if those of you who like pop culture will remember, in the second Star Wars, and people always miss this, there was art in that movie. There was that character, Jabba the Hutt, okay? And Jabba the Hutt had a little critter that sat on his knee called Salacious Crumb. Now, salacious means a miserable, low-down, cheap human being kind of person, and the crumb means a little, not something of no consequence. And so the people who wrote that character wrote it with all this in mind, that it's one thing to have despots and bad bosses and people with enormous power, but they must always keep an eye on their minions on their court. Because what happens is their power becomes, if you will, mutated. It becomes sometimes augmented in a bad way, made worse by their court. And they may do things that the boss would never allow. And I'm going there, and this isn't sexist. This could be men, women, whatever. Chiefs of staff and secretaries have learned this since time immemorial. How many of you work for a boss where if you could, you would take the secretary or the chief of staff out, man or woman though they may be, and shoot them today? I could load these phone lines with those calls, and thus it is. And that's the one thing I never was happy about with Mike Bloomberg's organization, is when I deal with his people, I need to put myself in a microwave for a while and detox. So it is what it is, and we have choices of these lesser evils, don't we? It is 7:18. We're going to take one more call if we can. The phone number is 999-4006, 999-4006, just for today, if you'd like to join the conversation. There are all kinds of things going on. We got to take another call. Or could it be the pain in the butt? That's also very possible, but we will find out. Maybe he called early. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Hey, it's Vince.
Oh, it is you. How am you?
Okay. All right.
Did you hear
Getting
that?
better.
Yeah, because you know what I forgot to tell Anthony? I don't know if you heard. He's got this neck problem. You have this disease. But I used my head. I bought a mask card, but didn't put a name on it.
Oh, boy.
So if he dies before you.
Yeah, the proverbial mascot. Boy, I remember those. And that goes back.
Indulgences, my friend.
That goes back to the Middle Ages when you would buy indulgences.
Well, I got a story here, and I had so much news today. No, this is apropos. I'm not changing the subject, so bear with me. One of those televangelists for $125 is selling. Oh God, where is it? Is selling cures.
Sign me up.
Oh God, where is it? Yeah, for $125, they're going to send you gold, and God will get rid of. God's going to cure you. You know, I hate to say this, and it's a nice day. I mean, it's and you cheap SOB probably didn't buy me or anything. But anyway, I digress. They're selling indulgences. So there's that other guy that's on there. Give me $1,000, and you get 1,000 blessings from the Lord.
Well,
he hasn't answered. Yes, and you know what's interesting? Even if one believes in that, and again, this is I got a call the other day. You hate God? I said, no, I don't. Although if he has been making these decisions, then maybe I should. But Why would he answer some prayers and not others? Does he sit up there and say, I don't like the beard that Vince wore some years ago, so to hell with his prayers. Anyway,
there's no answer to that.
Of course there isn't. There cannot be an answer.
I don't want to be an apologist for Michael Bloomberg because I loathe most of his policies, but
I love that word, like a bore.
But to give the devil their due, they get requests to work for the campaign by the hundreds of thousands.
Yes, of course they do. Of course they do.
And to pick through everyone, and you know what? I bet you what they do just what anybody else does. They're looking for on his level. They're looking for seasoned veterans, people who've been in this business.
Oh yeah, but I don't blame Michael. It's again, you'd have to see the people that work for him. Smarmy's the best word that I could use. Now,
I bet you though, if you called the local, support group, whatever organization that he has locally, I bet you they take you.
You know what? They might. They probably will. But see, there's a larger issue at play, and it's something else. I realize they get thousands of these things. But if your organization is up to snuff, now, I have to make this impersonal, otherwise it sounds egotistical. But if you're talking about a 15-year morning host in the richest county in the country who worked with Michael when he built his domain, that actually knows him somewhat, and has actually done business with him and negotiated a $55 million contract, that's not something you would throw out immediately. You ought to be able to see that. No?
Yeah, I suspect, but I think the main thing they probably have in mind is who has
who's got campaign experience?
Who's got campaign experience?
No, but you know what?
Who's elected people?
Do you remember?
Can get the,
yes.
More importantly, who can get the vote out?
Yeah, but do you remember when? Yeah, like a guy who's got a radio program. Do you remember when I was in charge of letter writing for Merrill Lynch and back in the early 70s?
Sure.
Do you know what we were sure to do? We sent an acknowledgement to everybody, no matter what. If they came in, and now in this computer day and age, there's no reason not to do it.
Oh, I know. Well, you know what? Any kind of common courtesy is gone out the window.
That's
there
my
is
point,
no more
though.
common
We
courtesy.
are. Now, at least this is very important, so I got to forgive Michael and his organization and continue to push for it. But it's a sign of the times why people are fed up, because they make us into insignificant beings subject to their will. Like yesterday here in New Rochelle, I was on my way to a meeting, and now listen to this. Now, I'm a big supporter of the development here. But in 4 square blocks, there were five digs in the street where I had to go somewhere about 6 blocks away. It took me 45 minutes. Now, in one of the cases, they directed me in a weird direction. I'm going down, and all of a sudden I look up, because you know the way the guys are waving and they're holding up for stop, go, put your finger up your butt. And all of a sudden I'm looking up, and there's a yellow light turning to red. And I bet you I got one of those red light tickets. It's like living in 1984, V, where we are just subject, and I know it's a delicate balance, but more and more and more, and I'm just fed up with it. If our cell phones don't tell us what to do, the red light camera does, or the bank does, it's nuts.
Well, when I became a council member...
There you go, folks. That'll tell you a lot. Imagine. Someone actually pulled the lever for this dude. God.
Well, the former mayor, who is on our council now, he's literally over 90 years old, and he's kind of my mentor and advisor. And
he has to be 90 to be older than you.
And, the first thing he said to me was, you return any phone call you receive from a constituent. And it's funny because yesterday I saw him. He and I were just catching up on borough business and things like that. And I said to him, hey, Glenn, I got a call from so-and-so, and he knows this person, this person is one of these people that does not want any tree cut down anywhere for any reason. and we've got some controversy going on in town about trees and stuff like that. And I said, so-and-so called me, and he looked at me and, oh, brother. And when I saw him later on at our workshop meeting last night, I says, well, Glenn, I said, I listened to your advice. I says, I called that person back, and I was on the phone for half hour listening to how we're all killing the trees and blah, 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 blah. But, his point was that these are your constituents. Now, I don't get nearly as many calls as the mayor does, of course, but they're your constituents. These are the people that you represent. Whether they voted for you or not, that's your job. You're there to listen to their concerns and hopefully act on them. So, yeah, we try to do that. We try to get back to people and be civil, and even though some of them are really wingnuts, but,
Well, you got to be. By the way, I'm sorry, but Jake just came in, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody. He had 2 hats and a hood on. He just went out to get coffee. I'm sorry. I'm no good, Vince. Do you know that?
Well, I've suspected that for many decades.
No, it's interesting what you say, and I believe that. It finally got posted. I wrote a piece about this. As you well know, what infuriates me, and this is apropos of your point, is I'll be off the air. And my old station is one of the few disagreements I ever had with them was, other than style or whatever, which happens in every radio station. But I'd be sitting there after be off the air, and I'd be busy as a bee for the next 3 hours. And someone would invariably turn to me and say, "What are you doing? You're done." And I wanted to take a knife and cut their heart out and eat it for lunch. Well, what you have an obligation to do, it seems to me, and it's a little harder now, and I may have missed this because we're out on so many platforms and people respond on each platform. But I always try, if anyone makes a comment, other than the typical, hey, nice show, but if someone sends me an email or a letter, I always answer it, always.
Yeah.
Because who the bleep am I? I'm just a jerk that got to do what he wanted to do. And when people take the time out, I always say, even if they took 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes out of their life.
Yeah. Well, I think what you should do in terms of Bloomberg is see who the county leader is.
I've already been in touch. A good friend of mine just opened up the office yesterday. But you see, as you well know, to my own detriment, I try to see if I can make things work without, quote, knowing someone. It's like when I refused to go to the Ranger from here in New Rochelle. I had talked to him and his parents when he got drafted 7-8 years ago. Now, I could have walked to his parents' house, knocked on the door, and said, "Would you please ask Mr. Kevin to call me, Kevin Shattenkirk?" But I wanted to do it officially through the Rangers. You try and work with Madison Square Garden, you understand why people hate Jim Dolan. They have that Michael Bloomberg, and again, and this is the other way I get even, V. I call it straight. Michael Bloomberg's organization is probably going to be filled with the smarmy people I'm used to working with whenever I dealt with him.
So do you think they're going to be at the next debates? Do you think the Democratic...
I hope so. I do want him to win. See, now, I don't particularly like the people around him, but we need a sane, competent man and a brilliant guy. And these women, I'm just sharing my opinion, and I want him there. But again, I've always had this with the people that work for him. In fact, you'd be in a meeting, like when we were negotiating, I was buying their data. And again, for those of you who don't know what Michael did, he built a wonderful organization by giving people what they needed, not what they asked for. It's a big difference. And if they need it, they buy it. At any rate, I almost lost my train of thought there. He absolutely built a beautiful product. But the only way you could get his information, and what I would say was, imagine if you could buy a house anywhere in the country, but all the competing prices around it were real time on a computer. Well, he did that with bonds 40 years ago. But the data he used to build that, you couldn't get from him unless you rented a terminal for $900 a month, then 30 years ago. So we were the first people to buy his data out of the box. And it was, in other words, to put it in our own systems, Vince. Mm-hmm. So it was a big deal. And so we'd be in these negotiations, and And again, you'd be shocked at how many Merrill Lynch executives were intimidated by what I'm about to tell you. And so their lawyer, their chief negotiator, I had a great negotiator, this guy by the name of Frank Hachheimer, and but still, they'd say, when they didn't agree with us, guess what they'd say? We'll call Michael. Mm-hmm. Even Dave Kamansky, the chairman of Merrill, who in many ways had more juice because we were the company that let Michael experiment in our systems, even he was afraid that Michael was going to call. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was like to do business with them. Just hardball. So what we did is we went out, our negotiating team, we bought Michael's book. And then he talks about doing business with big corporations. He says, there's always 5 or 10 people at a meeting. Nobody feels they can make a decision. You divide and conquer them. You get them fighting among yourself, and then you get the best deal.
Yeah.
But it was awful.
Isn't it something how Pocahontas's
be nice, would you Donald?
Pocahontas's campaign has just
I have to. That's wrong, but I get a kick out of that one. But what happened is this very formidable woman, who I was a big fan of for a long time. I don't know if the heat got to her or she got chopped by the heat of the campaign. But now she's like some. And I've criticized some of the Republicans when I cared enough to look at, which I don't do anymore. I don't look at debates until the very end anymore. They all look like puppets, fake puppets. All of them.
There's some analysis that some people feel she's too radical, and other people feel she's not radical enough, and she's kind of caught in the middle. I think, though, that, and then she says, I've got a plan for everything, and of course she doesn't. But I think that, I don't know, I can't help people thinking that people look at her the way I do, that she looks and sounds like a raving lunatic.
Well, at this point,
that she may have good ideas, she may be intelligent, but she acts in a way that you say to yourself, what the heck is this woman all about?
Allow me to defend.
And that's why, by the way, I think Klobuchar is doing so very well.
Oh, she's going to do very well. She's going to be the vice presidential nominee if anyone actually can rise to the top. Do you know what I have a bit of a soft spot for? And it is personal. Now, you remember at the end of my Merrill Lynch career, and I can put this on the table now, and you're not going to like Merrill Ford, folks. Others might say differently. But I was out having some major surgery when those planes hit 9/11. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I had my surgery, and I was going in for a second surgery. And the day before my second surgery, they called me to tell me that because of what happened on 9/11, anyone who's already not here, there'll be no job when you come back. And as you know, I was furious and refused to accept that, sued, and went through a horrible period. And by the time I got my lawyer, do you know, and this is, again, another sign of the times, and I told you this at the time, Vince, this is for the audience, he thought I was nuts. Mm-hmm. He thought I was just another disgruntled employee. And it was a very uncomfortable feeling because, it's like somebody trying to say, there's a thief at the door. You're all right, Bob, fine. No, there's a thief at the door. And then he finally comes in and shoots you. And he put me in, I kept him and we wound up doing very well. But there are situations in life where the disgruntled employee is disgruntled for a reason. But in her case, if you're going to run for president, you can't be. You can't lose your cookies.
Well, you have to be. Unfortunately, the way these campaigns are, it's as much a personality contest as anything else. And that's why the governor of Ohio, John Kasich, in the previous election cycle, did not do very well. He was the best of the bunch up there.
Yep.
But his personality was so bland that he, as soon as he started talking, people tuned out.
He was about as exciting as watching paint dry. He had a bad haircut, ill-fitting suits.
Yeah, he was really competent, and he had some real good ideas. He did some real good work in Ohio, and yet he couldn't get any traction because he was so unexciting. And unfortunately, that's part of this whole campaign stuff. And I think one of the things that Amy Klobuchar brings is I think she's intelligent, but she brings kind of an energy, a kind of a sparkle.
Yeah.
She's fresh. She
Wow.
is enthusiastic. And I think she's practical. That's why, they're saying, Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire. Well, number one, he barely won it. And last election cycle, admittedly, there was only 2 candidates. He won New Hampshire overwhelmingly over Clinton. But what you're seeing is the rise of the moderates with Klobuchar and Buttigieg, where people are saying, wait a minute, we don't want a revolution. We want somebody who's going to be steady, who's going to be thoughtful.
That's why I like Bloomberg.
Measured.
And
listen,
do you hear the music?
I do.
You know what that means?
Get the hell out of here.
You knew you got. Actually,
don't let the door hit you the butt on the way out.
I was going to say, I was going to see GTFO, and you're going to have to interpret it. Listen, thank you very, very much. Now, folks, some of you, and you know what I could always tell when we've got people who are and/or guests or callers, and I've told them that the main phone system, but we have an excellent backup. So I've been giving the backup number out, and Anthony was smart enough to call it, but some of the other people I see I have a special system where I could see who's calling, and they obviously didn't get the memo. They weren't listening. Listen! All right, I'm calm now. Vince, thank you very much.
I'll talk to you over the weekend.
All righty, folks. Here's what we're going to do, though. See, they don't know that we can call them. And again, see, the designers didn't make this angle quite enough because now I got to call the listener. Oh, not listener. Yes. Stay right there. We called them back. If only they would listen. The phone that we're using today and today only is 999-4006. 999-4006. We know we don't share numbers. We know that Mitch has tried to call, but one of our guests has also tried to call. That is the number, and we've been giving it out this morning. But let us first now go to the weather, and hopefully they will call us as we have requested. It's an interesting day in the neighborhood. It is Valentine's Day, so at least it won't rain on you when you take your honey to dinner, whomever he, she, it may be. It is 36. It is sunny right now. Sunny and windy. The temperature 29. It's a cold, nice winter day. And as we've said, Jake came with 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 hats on. And he thinks he's going to give me a hard time because I think I didn't have a very good record last night at hockey. But we'll find out tonight. Clear skies. The temperature gets down to 10. Saturday, sunny. The temperature will be 30 degrees with the wind out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Sunny, partly sunny. The high 44. The overnight low 31 degrees. And the weather this morning is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. Voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campus, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And this bottom of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Again, this is a test to guests and the listeners. 999-4006. Tell you what we're going to do and see if he gets it now. We couldn't get our guest, and she's probably annoyed with us that our phone system is failing, but these are the vicissitudes of live radio. So we're going to surprise a guest. But again, we don't give out phone numbers, so hopefully he'll answer. But if he wouldn't have this problem, I can't believe that this cheap phone. Oh, by the way. All right. We're going to get to Jake sooner than we think. We hope Steve Callis is listening because if he's going to call in, and we'll try and call him later, we want to remind him that it's today, 914-999-4006. And if you want to call in and join the conversation, go ahead. We couldn't get any of our other proposed guests on the line, so it is what it is. Let's move on, though. Let's see if we got anything else. 710, call somebody. Okay, good. We move forward. There were a couple of stories today that were well worth mentioning. It wasn't all bad. I love these stories. After the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl this week, defensive tackle Derek Nadie celebrated in his own unique way, as well as making snow angels and the confetti on the field. He paid the adoption fees for every dog, more than 100, at a no-kill shelter in Kansas City. And if you love dogs and you love animals, what a wonderful thing to do. It was the culmination of a season-long team-up with the KC Pet Project, at which Nadi marked each Chiefs win by paying a pooch's $150 adoption bill. That's kind of nice. I like that kind of stuff. A good week. This is out of the Week magazine. Let's see who might be there. It could be anyone. The Week magazine. I liked this story as well. Give credit to Bill and Melinda Gates. They announced that they were donating $100 million to help with the coronavirus. And I could think of a lot of other ways that people like that could donate their money. And this is coming out of Baltimore County, some recycling. A bad week for recycling. Now get this, and I wonder if this happens here in Westchester. Baltimore County admitted that they have not recycled glass in 7 years, despite requiring residents to place discarded bottles and jars in recycling bins the entire time. We got to look into that here, because I know I'm very much in the minority, and I had a dear friend who was passed away, great. In fact, his whole business was called Green Living Solutions. He used to hate me for this. I do the recycling only because I don't want to get in trouble, but I despise it, all that kind of mindless work, only to find out that it doesn't matter. If it mattered, maybe I'd care more, but that is just a Bob peculiarity. Let's see who's on the phone. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. Hello.
Good morning.
Sorry, you got my message. Sorry about that. Our phone system was giving us a little bit of grief, so we went to a backup number. I had a story for you that I wanted to share. But first, Janelle Albritton is the managing editor and the publisher of the Westchester County Post.com. She's a public health professional. She's a jazz singer. She's a videographer. She does many, many things, as do many of our great guests. And she cares a lot about public health. There was a piece today that came off over the wire about more and more people are turning to meditation or to retreats where they can just be quiet. Put their phones on a shelf. Talk to us about that. You've talked about that for weeks on this air, and now it's coming out in other platforms.
You heard first from me. Yay. Yeah, I just really love Dr. Joe Dispenza and what he's doing with the science of meditation. He's putting, probes on people's heads and tracking the EEG and the heart monitors, and he's digging into the science of of meditation.
And what is it? What happens to our brains? And how does that differ with that twilight zone between wakefulness and sleep, where you start to get when you start to get that nice feeling? Oh, by the way, how could I? Happy V-Day to you. Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day, my dear friend.
Oh, keep saying it like that. And I'll leave the radio and come where you are. Okay. So how does it help us? How does it help? Why does it help so much? And why are more people turning to it now? And do we overwork ourselves? Although you do too, even though you understand these things. Got to eat.
All right. So meditation, when done in a certain way, can really change the brain waves from the high speed beta, like that, like when you're stuck in traffic and I gotta go here, I gotta go there, I gotta blah 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 blah.
Or like the
we
hour,
all know that.
Or like the hour before I'm on the air and the clock is ticking and the printer breaks and I can't figure out a story and how do I rewrite it, and oh goodness, that we're going to at 6:30 I have to be on the air in just a minute. What am I going to do? Kind of feeling.
That is called high beta, and when we can choose to focus on certain things and do things in a certain way and bring our brain down to alpha, which is kind of the lighter zone of the twilight zone when you're just waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And the next deeper phase is theta, and that's more like the hypnotic zone.
What does
and
it?
Then
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Yeah, deeper than that is a delta. So to have really actually restorative sleep, we really need to be in delta at least twice during the night. And there's like this whole thing. I'll be posting an expose on this on Westchester County Post.
Now, an expose is a strong word. That I kind of infer when you say that it's been something that's been kept on the down low.
Well,
or you're calling it a feature. Would that be a better word?
Yeah, maybe. I think people know that, okay, meditation, yeah. But the way Joe Dispenza he's cracking the code. He says that science is the contemporary language for mysticism. And
that's a stretch, but that's a stretch. But okay.
Well, yeah, I sent you a couple of links.
No, I know, and I can't. I'd love to get him on the air if he wants to come on anytime.
Oh yeah, he's a rock star. I'm telling you.
I mean, he can come on because I don't know where he hangs his hat, but he can come on. You can come in the studio. We'll do an hour with him if he wants.
Well, I would really love that. He's based in California, but he travels. He's all over the world, doing workshops for 1,000 people at a time.
Let me ask him a question through you at this point. Now, one of the things we know, and of course, there are certain mysteries to sleep and or meditation, but you have issues when you get that proper sleep where your serotonin levels and other chemicals needed to stay sane and healthy are restored or not reuptaken at any or reuptaken to balance levels. Does meditation do as much as sleep does for that? Is it akin to sleep?
It can help. Like meditation, it can do much more than sleep in that when done properly. So let's just go straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Dispenza has been witnessing spontaneous remissions of disease like Parkinson's, cancer, diabetes, MS, like crazy, miraculous, biblical proportion type miracles at his workshops.
Okay.
And
now, just to be blatantly honest, I have a healthy skepticism for it, but on the other hand, I'm very anxious to hear about it.
Well, like I said, Westchester County Post, click on the wellness link. I will be, in the next few days, I've been doing a lot of research about this,
mm-hmm.
and I'm very concerned about this because my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2009.
Oh, my. Okay.
And he's doing great. And, I've had chronic illness. I've had chronic fatigue syndrome, low thyroid. My mom is recently diagnosed with Graves.
Oh, my. Yes.
So I really care about this.
Of course,
stuff.
yeah.
And doctors, a lot of physicians really, they don't know. They don't know. They don't have the training, and even if they're trained, they just don't know. And I'm not knocking them.
No, I know, because we all have high praise for the scientific method and the ways they test things, but those things, by their definition, are limited to that protocol. So
that's why it's called practicing medicine.
Yeah.
You practice the art of medicine. It's not the hard science that people wish it was. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, be open to new things. Be open to testimonials from people who said, I went to this 5-day seminar and I walked out and I went home and I was healed. Just open to the miraculous force and power of the body-mind connection. Because if thoughts can make you sick, thoughts can heal you.
Now,
and that's what Joe Dispenza
will you reach out to him? Will you act as an intermediary for us, since you have a relationship with him, and invite him on? And we'll spend an hour and we'll really give him a chance to get his sensibilities out there. We'll give him a...
Well, I've been reaching out to him, but just like this guy is, I can't even tell you. He is... He is like a rock star. I can't even...
Thought you were talking about me, but I realized not so. All right, listen.
If Joe Dispenza rock star, you're like a monster ballad guy.
Yeah,
right?
That's the way it is. All righty, listen. I know we have you on a short leash, but this is very interesting. We're going to have your sports guy on now because he and Jake like to make fun of me, as you know. But I wish you the very best of weekends. We hope your Valentine's Day goes well. Janelle Albritton, thank you very, very much. All righty. We go straight ahead. We're going to put Jake in the seat of honor. We have to put his... There we go. This is wonderful. Everybody's getting the memo that we're using the hotline and the hotline only today. Just a quick update as we get to our next segment. It includes Jake's Sports. Steve Callis, our go-to sports guy from the Westchester County Post. This segment's brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont, open 7 days. And first, let's put the camera on our guy. We're getting to him early, but then we have to bring on... there he is, and he's only wearing one hat. Impressive. Now, why did you come in with 2 hats today?
It's pretty cold.
3. Hold on. 2 hats. Pretty cold.
Pretty cold out.
Okay. Now, we're not going to do Marrone yet because we're going to bring on
You
Steve.
didn't make any picks yesterday, so...
Oh, I thought I did.
No.
Well, okay, good.
Mondays only now.
Monday, so I can't lose with the stuff you
You're
lose.
all right. You're good to go.
I like that. The voice. Look at that. They call
Smoke
that,
some cigarettes.
they call that verbal fry. By the way, you're not smoking, are you? You smoke cigars.
I took it up.
Oh, no, don't do the smoking cigarettes. It's horrible for you. At any rate, folks, I was looking on his website. Did I say looking on on some of the work he's been doing for the Westchester County Post and some other work that he's been doing. And I like it when he says, speaking of sports, like the great Howard Cosell. His name is Steve Callis. Many of you know him from The Fanatic, from down in Philly, from ESPN Radio, and, of course, what he does now with Janelle at the Westchester County Post. And we're proud to have him with us each and every Friday. Please welcome Steve Callis. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Bob. Great to be with you and Jake as always. I hear Jake wears many hats down there, huh?
Wears many hats. He came in here. Look, when he first came in, I thought he was one of the homeless folks that travel around the train station.
Well, hey, Bob, if Jake is really taking up smoking, you should really put him in contact with Janelle because she does a lot of that non-smoking, beat smoking, quit smoking. She can do all that stuff. So you might want to give him some advice because you're right. It's a bad thing to take up.
I'm going to call her after the show.
You should call her after. But you know what he was just doing? Now, he's new to radio. He's been a stand-up comedian all his life. So he's an in-person performer. And he was doing the head nod, and he's on the radio. Well, that's all. You can do it now because you're on the camera. I get it.
Right.
I was wrong. Stephen, you've been writing. I wanted you to talk a little bit about some of the pieces that you've been writing and talking about, and speaking of sports and other things. What's on your mind lately? What's at the top of your queue?
Well, really, the whole apology tour.
Yes.
The A.J. Hinch interview was my first interview for my next job. The notion that you could look into a camera when he's asked a specific question by Tom Verducci about buzzers, for example, and his answer wasn't, no, there was no buzzers. His answer was, well, Major League Baseball investigated this for months. They did a thorough investigation, and they found nothing. The next question should have been, no, I'm asking you, AJ. I don't want to know what Major League Baseball. They're the DA who came in after the bank robbery. You're the guy who was there.
In other words, what he's saying, he sounds like the current administration. They didn't catch us. There's no direct link, rather than saying I didn't do it.
Well, and that's also why I wrote they really should. You know, I'm not a big guy for getting rid of championships, but I really thought they should vacate this championship because what's the message to everybody now? The players won't get hurt, right? Strongest union in the world. They get immunity. And the answer is, if we didn't give them immunity, we wouldn't know anything. But they're the ones who did it. It was player decided and player executed according to the report of the commissioner. So now the blueprint is there. You cheat all you want because if you, the players, get caught, nothing's going to happen to you.
But isn't there a larger issue here? At least this is a gut from me, but you've been an expert at this more years than Jake and I. And that is, I think that this is so widespread and the bar moved, no one really knows where it becomes illegal, that this would be a scandal that it's going to rock all of baseball, and probably lots of teams do it to lesser or greater events, even those even those that are now pretending to be holier than thou. Now, if that assumption is correct, then what? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think your assumption is correct, frankly, but again, until you have evidence and proof, and that means players flipping, for lack of a better word. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, Bob.
No, it's a good word.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to do something to stop this, or else it's so fascinating now with sports gambling becoming what it is, i.e. legal. You see all this stuff happening now, and it's like, how can you talk about the integrity of the game? How can you even think about betting on these things if you're really objective about it? Now, if you're a degenerate gambler, you're going to bet how far somebody can spit versus somebody else.
Well, how many hats Jake will wear tomorrow?
It could be 2, could be 5, but if he's smoking, it might be none soon.
I mean,
so
he's got
should, again,
cigars.
Have him talk to my boss. She can help him out. But seriously, in terms of you're right. I mean, the notion that it's only the Astros or it's maybe only the Red Sox and Alex Cora is the middle guy because he was at both teams, that it's just them, I agree with you. That's ridiculous. But as you know, stealing signs is legal. It's just that stealing signs with the aid of technology is illegal. And that's the way it should be, frankly. If you got a guy on second base or you got a third base coach who can see the catcher's signals, that's a totally different thing and perfectly okay. But this was so rampant. This was, monitors in the dugout. So A.J. Hinch says, yeah, I broke the monitor twice, and you thought they'd get the message by then. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, you should have broke the monitor every day then because you would have stopped it if you broke it every day. It was just so, and now the players all have the script, and the script is, yeah, we're really sorry. We're really sorry.
No, they're not.
And that's all they are. They're really,
not.
really, really, really sorry. But nothing's happened to them, and nothing will happen to them because, again, they're in the strongest union in the history of the world.
What do you say, Jake?
Why are they waiting on the Red Sox? Why don't they drop the hammer on the Red Sox?
The investigation is continuing. I saw the new GM of the Red Sox on yesterday with Ron Renicky, who's now the interim manager of the Red Sox.
But wasn't he the bench coach?
Yes,
but
so that's a whole other thing. They must think he's clean, but again, if you're in the dugout and 20, 30 guys are cheating, how can you not know? He's the bench coach. He's there all the time. So I think that's going to be a problem for them. But to answer Jake's question, as of yesterday, the Major League Baseball investigation of the 2018 Red Sox is continuing.
Wow. Well, let's apropos of that. See, I think it's apropos of this discussion because my cynical gut now says that Major League Baseball has rolled out this new playoff format to take our eyes off what's really happening. Do you agree with that, A? And what do you think of the new format? I abhor the fact that you get to pick your enemy. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the I agree with you. It's the quintessential be careful what you wish for. You know, at the end of every playoff series when somebody sweeps and the other guys are going 7 games, what do they always ask? They always ask, "Oh, who do you want to play?" And what do they say? "Oh, it doesn't matter," because there's no way they're going to pick a team because that'll just piss off the other team. Now, if you affirmatively have to do it as part of the playoffs, which again I agree is ridiculous, you're going to pick that team and they're going to go, "Oh, you picked us, we're going to kick your butt," and there's going to be even more motivation than there usually is. So I think, look, going to 14 teams is what? It's a money grab. It's the wild card in football. In football, you know, you're 5-7. Oh, if we can win the last 4 games, we can make the playoffs maybe. And that's just to keep the fans interested. You know, in the old days, Bob, if you were 5-7, what? You were playing for next year.
That's
maybe
absolutely
you can get to
right.
500. But nowadays, we can make the playoffs, and once the playoffs start, you never know what's going to happen. And for years, much as we love hockey, and I love basketball as well, you know, there's 16 teams in the playoffs every year now. To me, that's always been ridiculous, but it's a money grab, and that's all baseball is doing. And I agree with you in terms of the timing. Maybe we can take a little heat off this whole Astros mess that happened right under our noses.
But I think that the baseball commissioner is. I honestly think he has to go. I think that he is no longer. I don't think he has any integrity left. I think they got to dump him.
Well, I've always liked like a Joe Torre. I've always wanted a baseball guy to be baseball commissioner, and I know that's naive. I wanted a basketball guy to be basketball commissioner. David Stern, you know, he made these guys billionaires. And same in hockey. Bettman was Stern's right-hand man, first at the law firm, then at the NBA. When he became a hockey guy, he knew nothing about hockey. I mean, it was painfully obvious. So I always thought there were guys who could do that job who had been hockey players, but that's not the way they went. They went, you know, Goodell, we just want to make billions of dollars, so we don't care what he knows about football or, frankly, what he knows about other things, but he's getting $40 million a year.
That's pretty good. $40 million a year. I will take that job. What else are you working on? What else is bugging you these days, and what are you going to be doing tomorrow?
Well, this week I did a thing. Again, we shot videos on Wednesday. Hopefully it'll be up today. I did one just on the A.J. Hinch interview, which I found appalling.
It was.
But also something on the NBA now. No more football, as you know, but NBA at the trade deadline, who are the best teams, that kind of thing. Going to do a little hockey next week, Bob, so I'll let you know when that video is up.
One more thing. I forgot something, and I'm sorry to step on your lines there. It's a bad form in radio. But
you're the host.
No, but still, my man came in, Jake came in, and gave us a report about the XFL, about how good that game was and the rule changes were that had resonated with lots of people. Other people called in and agreed with him. I guess one guy walked in off the street and agreed with him. And some major NFL players agreed with him. What did you think?
Well, I'm going to have to defer to Jake on the XFL because whatever the new rules are, you know, if this goes back to the three-point shot in the ABA and the red, white, and blue ball, the reality for me, and this is just for me, the XFL would be like watching AAA baseball or watching the AHL, which I'm not against watching, but I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. So I'll defer to Jake on any XFL stuff. If good rules come out of the XFL, I'm cool with that. But again, you're watching, in my opinion, AAA minor leaguers playing football, and I'd rather turn my attention to the NHL and the NBA.
Okay, I understand that. Although I'm going to just say this because it's personal. The best buy in sports is the American Hockey League.
No, you've said that on the air a number of times.
Doesn't come close.
I don't disagree. I used to go to Bridgeport Bluefish games when I lived in Richfield, Connecticut for a few years. And you're 100% right. My son was living in Memphis. We went to the Cardinals stadium down there. It was incredible, cheap. Every seat's a good seat. I agree with you, but you're not going there to watch top major leaguers play. You understand what you're going to see. So you're right, and you'll see future stars maybe. But the notion that this is a high level of football somewhere near the NFL is, to me, ridiculous.
Well, yeah, I understand that. Now, some of the new rules were pretty good. They have this new kickoff process and so forth. Well, before you go, your final analysis on the baseball scandal.
My final analysis is, and I'm in the minority here, they should vacate that World Series title because after all is said and done, all the players now know what will happen in the future. If they get caught cheating, they're going to get immunity, they're going to spill the beans. It's not going to hurt them. It'll hurt them reputation-wise, maybe Hall of Fame-wise, but the reality is the Houston Astros won the 2017 World Series, and in the old days, what you used to say, oh, they can never take that away from us. But given what happened here with the blatant cheating right under the manager's nose who didn't like it, so he broke the monitor twice, and all the players said in the report, if the manager had told us to stop, we immediately would have, and you don't know whether to laugh or cry because the guy broke the monitor twice. And I said on the air, he should have, if he's not going to have a meeting, break the monitor every single day. That way they couldn't cheat. So I think that's the best they could come up with, but Manfred has already said he won't vacate, and that that's his decision, but I think it's a bad one. The other thing I did want to say, you asked me when I'm going to be on. I won't be on till Sunday with Joe Stazak at 97.5 The Fanatic. That's Sunday at 5:10. I'll be doing a podcast with him later today that Janelle will put up at WestchesterCountyPost.com. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I was hoping we were going to do a little Rangers because they're hot now, and I don't know if you have a minute for that, but did you watch the end of that game last night?
Remember when I get up, so no, I did not. I actually, though, my grandson texted me that they won in overtime. Although, didn't they have a cheap goal? They got lucky. A puck rolled in at 1 mile an hour or some goal.
Yeah, they won in a shootout, and the Rangers were 0-2 in shootouts this year. But they pulled the goalie, and they were down 3-1 in the third, and Zibanejad scored on a beautiful pass from Panarin with 1:06 left. What I wanted to ask you about, Bob, because you know more about this than me, in the shootout. Panarin came in, and it looked to me like he went backwards and scored a goal, and they reviewed it to see whether it was good or not. I haven't seen that in the shootout. Maybe you have. And I thought he clearly went backwards, which would mean it's not a goal, but the refs ruled that he went sideways.
Yeah, there is a play. If you want to see this, the guy who perfected it was a guy on the Red Wings, Datsuk.
Uh-huh.
It's a play where you come, and think of the edges of an ice skate, where you come down and you cut your skates really hard to the right. So you're going backwards a little bit, but your net forward motion continues. It's like a plane that's flying, that is flying against the wind, and they do a so-called crab. It's a little bit like that, and they long time ago said that's okay to do. So you look like you're going backwards, but that's clearly a Datsuk move.
Fascinating.
But
so Zibanejad scored in the first round. And then Panarin did that in the second round.
Yeah.
Then Zach Parise hit the crossbar, and that's how they won the game in a shootout.
I just want to say this about the Rangers, and I'm glad you brought it up. I try not to have too much hockey because it's my love, but since you brought it up, the biggest concern I have with the Rangers, and it endures, and this guy Lindgren's going to make a difference, is when you have 5 20-year-old defensemen. You are going to make mistakes. Even this guy, and he's had a great season, and I hope the Rangers don't get rid of him, but Tony DeAngelo has a lot of points, but he'll make a mistake a night that could burn you because you can't not be back. Major League Hockey players are too fast. If you're not back and you don't make good decisions in your end, you're going to lose. And so that's why it's so hard for them to put together a win streak. But they are getting better. I'd say in a year or two, they're going to be an enormous powerhouse. But again, I think you're going to see. You notice who's playing a lot more now? Stahl. As much as fans criticize him,
which is interesting. Yeah, I hear you.
But that's because you need that. You can't play football without a good defensive line. You can't play without linebackers. Hockey's no different, especially when it gets to the playoffs. If you don't have shutdown defensemen, you're going to lose.
Yep.
And you'll lose by a big score. Hey, my friend, thank you very much. One more time, where can people listen to you and get to you this weekend?
Sunday, 5:10 p.m., 97.5 The Fanatic. Just Google that, and at the bottom there'll be a little red Listen Live. I'll be on with Joe Stazak of ESPN Philly. That's the ESPN station down there. And then again, we'll do a podcast today that Janelle will put up this afternoon. And I'm going to have a couple videos that I think will go up today as well on the A.J. Hinch interview and on the NBA at the trade deadline.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve Callis. You can read him. He is the sports editor for the the Westchester County Post.com. Thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
kind of nice, folks, when you get a chance to talk with an old friend, somebody that you've known for a while. And Jake, you don't have to keep an eye on that. They're not going to write them up in this short phrase. We have a guest in the studio, someone that I've known. He calls himself Chef Wayne, but we're going to let you, he's going to share his full name with him. I've known the guy for a few years when he first opened up his restaurant right here in the downtown. That's 5 years. Now, you can talk. We're going to put your mic on. Jake, sit down and say hello to our friend. Wayne, it's good to see you again. Get on the mic, if you will.
You got it.
I saw it say getting on the mic. It was very nice of you to send me that email yesterday.
Yes.
And I told Jake, I said, Wayne knows me. We know each other. I went in. I've eaten there. It's 5 years now. Wayne Carrington. He's also Chef Wayne.
5.5.
It's Rockin' Raymond.
Rockin' Ramen.
Yeah. I always say Raymond, and I should be. What, Jake? What? No, listen.
That was a good movie.
No, but get on the mic, a little close to the mic. See, the problem, Wayne, is I have to take him seriously. Now, don't tell him, Jake. Do you know how many hats he came in wearing today?
5.
3. He had on a hat, then he had on one of those little hats that 5-year-olds wear, and then he had a hoodie on. Your restaurant, let's get back to you, has been tremendously successful.
Yes, we've
Why?
had.
What is it about? I know it's the place to go. Millennials love it. Give me noodles.
You know what it is? We're all about customer service.
Okay.
That's the key to anything.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've had the opportunity to use a great deal in my life.
Yes.
From being a former New York City
well,
police officer.
you were a cop too as well.
Yeah. And lucky enough, before the police department, I actually was in the food industry, working for Wenco, which is Wendy's Corporation. And
got any burgers?
Hey,
did he bring food? Did he bring? Oh, go
come
ahead.
on! I've got a couple of things for you before I leave.
Okay.
And in that industry, from the police department to food, at the end of the day, we're there to service people, to help.
Well,
people.
it really does matter. I mean, I'm telling you, you get treated lousily. It almost doesn't matter if the food is good. You know the story I like to tell?
What's that?
And because this is where I'm a nasty. I am a nasty person in one regard.
Yeah.
If I get bad customer service, I out them on the air. Oh yeah, I do. Like my favorite. You ever go to the Staples over here, or maybe it's gotten better? The Staples over here on the Larchmont.
Yes, yeah. In the mall.
Oh
there.
my
Yes, yeah.
God, they
Mrs.
couldn't
Green's
run that
was.
place worse if they tried.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't know where they get the help from. They are all confused. I mean, some people by the print desk are pretty good, but has it gotten any better? Well, that just gives you an idea. Another idea. Do you know there's that new dollar store down
Dollar General.
Yeah.
Yes.
It always looks like there's been an explosion in there. Clothes are all over the floor. And see, I consider it my civic duty to do that. And I've stopped beating up on this one restaurant that I visited, who I've heard has to move, and I'm not sorry. I visited them when I ran the chamber, and evidently my predecessors never visited them. And the guy spent a half hour cursing and yelling at me. So I reminded people that on a very frequent basis. But my favorite is, so I work late a lot, where I have to come back to the studio, paperwork and everything else. This is last year, and I was starving. So I happened to have visited a client out in Mamaroneck, and I went on Mamaroneck Avenue, that beautiful strip there with all the restaurants.
Yes.
And I look at this Asian place, and it's open till 9. So I go in there 8:15. You can't order chicken. Why not? Because I'll have to cook it and get everything out again. You have to get only what's on this little menu. Wasn't it? Now, I don't out them now because it's old and maybe it's better, so it wouldn't be fair. But boy, did I rip them a new heart. See, here's my point. If you're going to do that, don't be in business.
Right.
If you close up, if you say you're open till 9, don't close the doors at 9:10 and say you've stopped.
That's so funny you say that. I just had this conversation. We had an incident one day where I left the restaurant for a little while, and I came back. It was about 9:45. It was on a weekend. As I'm walking up to the restaurant, 2 people are walking out, and they don't know who I am, and they go, "Don't go in there. They're closed." I said, excuse
I'm
me?
so glad you caught them. I'm excited.
So
yes,
I go, they're closed? I said, really? I said, you know what? Do you really want to go in and eat? And they said, oh my gosh, we drove from Long Island to get here, and it was a 35-minute drive. I said, you know what? I know the owner pretty well.
Oh my
I said,
goodness.
come on in, and I'll see if I can get you a seat. So I walk in, and one of my servers, I look at them and I go, I'm going to seat these people. And they look at me and they go, Chef, we close in 15 minutes. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We close
We're still
in
open.
15 minutes.
Yes.
So why
God
are the lights
bless
off?
you.
And why are the chairs up on the side?
Thank you.
So when I created
This is great.
When I created Rockin' Ramen, one of the things that were really important to me was to bring, because I was somewhat new to New Rochelle, somewhat new. My family grew up in Marrone.
Okay, so you've been from, the area.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know the area.
Again, I want to remind, they call him Chef Wayne, but Wayne Carrington's his name. He is the proprietor and the guy that started Rockin', and I always get this wrong, Raymond here in New Rochelle, in downtown New Rochelle. Wonderful restaurant, very trendy restaurant. We're going to get to why you chose ramen. Okay. People tell me that it's a great business to be in because the costs are low, but then you got people. Costs are never low, no matter what you do.
Right.
But anyway, so continue. What was their reaction to? They must. Those employees must.
That employee ended up not working for us.
Well, I got to share with you. It's a funny story, and I made extra time today, so don't feel rushed. I wear glasses, as you can see, but I didn't always. And like one of those people, mid-40s, all of a sudden I couldn't read the small print. I couldn't read box scores. And so I one of these like Pearl Vision deals. And it's not Pearl Vision. I'm not giving them a hard time. I forgot what it was.
Right.
It's a 20-year-old story. So I get there. They close at 5, at about 10 to 5. And the door was locked. And I go, you say you're open till 5. No, we're closed. So guess what I started doing? I pretended to be blind and kept walking into the door, smashing into the window, banging into the window, and I shamed them into opening it.
I love it.
And you're open till 5, please. I can't see. Did you get the message yet? So let's go back in time. And again, now you brought help. Now, this man's looking at you like you have 8 heads. Sir, get on the microphone. And you are? Oh, no, you're just here with him? Are you like his partner or something? Or driver?
Yes.
Or
This is my...
Does he make ramen, Ron, whatever the hell it's called? Ramen.
No, like he says, Wayne, if you need any help, I can wipe a table and take out a garbage bag.
I don't use the word take out. Like, I don't want to take me out if I mistreat you or something.
But this is the stronger half of Rockin' Ramen. This is my partner, Rudy.
Hi, Rudy.
Yes, Rudy and I have been together for...
say hello. Come on, just say, Rudy, I'm a regular guy. I know Wayne for years, for God's sakes.
He likes to stay in the background.
You're both in the noodle business.
Yes. I actually met Rudy 3 years ago as a guest at Rockin' Ramen.
Oh, so he tasted the wares.
Yes, he did. He actually would come in with his sons on a regular basis. And one day in 2016, we started our dialogue asking, so Wayne, what do you want to do with this company? What's your intentions? And after almost a year and a couple of months of talking together, we finally decided to partner up.
Well, no, I understand. Now, like Jake's been involved with us now since we started and very supportive of what we do. So I understand how that happens. And except Jake likes to talk on a microphone. He's sitting there like, you better say the right thing, Bob, or I'll kill you. I don't need that. I'm not going to abuse. I'm going to be nice to you. We're going to talk about the noodle business. All right, we'll be back to Rudy in a minute.
Yes.
I always wondered when you open your business, again, what drives the key decisions? Why ramen?
Why ramen? It's a funny story.
And by the way, he's wearing, I got to remind people, if you look real close, folks, in the picture, turn to the camera a little bit, he's got a bowl of noodles on his shirt. So, all right, so go ahead. Good grief.
Yes, these are our executive shirts.
Executive chef shirts.
Yes.
Bowl and noodles.
Yes. Yeah,
I guess
we'll
I
be
should
sure
have
to get
little,
you.
I should have little microphones on
Wow,
mine.
we're gonna get you one of these.
Go
all
ahead,
right?
Wayne.
All right.
So why noodles?
It wasn't a very hard decision. After the police department, I went.
It was
back
an
into
al
food
dente
again.
decision. No, I'm sorry.
It was actually I was working for Five Guys. I was an executive with Five Guys Corporation.
You were an executive or
Yes.
executive chef?
Executive,
okay.
regional VP.
Okay.
For
Excuse me.
and I happened to be away for a little while from the family. Mm-hmm. And when I got home, my daughters knew I had a fondness for the young lady. Help me out.
Brittany Murphy.
Yes, Brittany Murphy.
By the way, folks, Rudy also tells him what. Oh, Brittany Murphy. Okay, you had. Now you got to be careful about that. You know, it reminds me when my daughter was young. She said, "Daddy, how come you like Madonna? She's a slut." And I don't know what got into me. I said, "But that's what I like about Madonna."
Well,
So
with Brittany Murphy,
this is 30, 40 years ago.
I give Brittany Murphy, God rest her soul. She passed away on us in 2010, I believe. But before that, she did a movie called Ramen Girl.
So this comes from a movie?
This came directly from a movie.
Wow,
Yes,
this was really
yes,
original.
yes,
Go ahead.
yes. So
From the movie.
From the movie. I watched the movie. My girls fell asleep. And right after the movie, I said to my girls, mind you, I never had traditional ramen. Never had it at all.
I didn't have it till I went to your restaurant.
I didn't even know it existed. I just, in the city, as long as I worked, all throughout New York and the other states, I never noticed any ramen shops until that movie. So after the movie, I asked my oldest daughter, Mia, I said, hey, Mia, do me a favor. Look for a ramen shop in New Rochelle. And she goes, Dad, there's none. I said, and it was a Sunday. It was raining. I was tired. I really didn't feel like going out. So I said, you know what? Look for one in the Bronx. We'll go to the Bronx. Nothing. Brooklyn. Nothing. Queens. They don't have good star ratings. I said, is there anything in the city? I dreaded going to the city. She finally says, Dad, there's a place called Ipuro.
Who?
Ipuro.
Okay.
Okay. And on
You
the
too.
Lower East
Whatever you
Side.
just said to
Yes,
me. You
yes.
too. We have
God
more
bless
back
you.
out Puri to you too.
God bless you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jeez.
So with that being said, she goes, Dad, do you want to try this one? I said, yeah, you know what? Come on, let's get dressed. They open at 5. Let's get down there at 4. We drive down, pouring rain. We get there. There's a line from the front door, one city block to the corner, and down the next block. My girls and my fiance, they look at me and they go, "You're kidding, right? We're going home?" I said, "No. See the guy on the corner with the umbrellas? Today we're going to be enterprising, and we're about to
You
go
bought
buy
those
some."
$3
That's
umbrellas.
right. We're about to help this guy out. We bought 4 umbrellas,
And you
we
waited.
stood in line for 3.5 hours.
How was the food?
The food was amazing. It was everything like the movie. The hot bowl, the glistening broth, the noodles, the pork, the chicken, the spicy
Folks,
sauce.
he's talking himself into a frenzy.
Yes. And while in line, I got to meet individuals that I will call today ramen heads. People who
Excuse me?
Yes.
Whatever. Noodle heads would be a little nicer, no?
Yeah, they're ramen heads.
Ramen,
They're
okay.
ramen heads. All they do is live, breathe, and eat ramen.
Okay.
So with that being said, I had people tell me, Wayne, you've got to try this place called Toto Ramen. You've got to try Sapporo Ramen. They named a ton of ramen shops, and the whole time I'm in my phone taking notes.
Now, what's the difference between ramen and a box of spaghetti? Just a little different, or?
There's a big difference. You
I'm
have
sure.
the way it's prepared. The noodles that we use are fresh, and they're not the hard.
Well, do you make them there?
Noodles. We do not.
Okay.
we do not.
Now, are
But
they fresh? Does that mean they're like bendable?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
I knew.
Yes. Very good. Yeah, that's from the last time you were there.
Yeah.
I gave you a course.
No, but after they were cooked, of course they're slow. I remember one of the dishes I got.
Yes.
Like if someone gets a soup, I expected to get a soup.
Yeah.
Except there was an animal's leg in there. That's just the
Thank
way I
you.
put it.
Thank you.
I said, "Look at this. This guy went through the Civil War. He picked up a couple of legs in the battlefield, threw them in. No, but you get a whole big hunk of meat. It's not just soup.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Our meals,
and it
they're
wasn't
meals.
swimming. It was deaf.
No,
okay.
no. So, and as I started to go out and eat at the different ramen shops, I noticed there was always a crowd. Always a crowd.
What is it about that? Because I know, look, I'm not naive enough. I know it's a good business because generally the food costs, well, the meat's expensive, but ramen's not expensive to buy, which is a smart thing. But people love this stuff.
Yes.
I'm thinking of opening up a ramen shop right here in this.
Oh, well, very good. We'll get into that conversation in about 2
Noodle
minutes.
Radio. Go ahead.
Right. That's right. So it was something where I started going to all these different ramen shops. I noticed the very large crowds. The one thing I did not notice was that we had a lot of different cultures embracing ramen.
No kidding. I look in there, and it's very diverse.
It's very yes. As a matter of fact, last summer or a summer ago, we sit outside every summer. Okay,
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's like having an old school restaurant, and
Used to go in there when that ice cream guy was there. I'd stop in there next door and have ice cream after noodles.
that's
Noodles are
right.
a great thing in your stomach.
Thank you.
You come out 6 pounds heavier than
there you
walked
go.
in.
So why not get some ice cream?
Yeah. So go ahead.
So I had a gentleman come out one day, and he walked over to me where I was sitting outside, and he goes, "Hey, chef," he said, "You've got the Rainbow Coalition in there."
Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm. And that my intentions were to try and diversify ramen, give something that everyone wanted.
Well, it's you should have this is rotten what I'm going to do, but you should have Jake go in there because then you could have an undefinable.
There you go.
We got black folks, Latinos, Asians, whites,
we got Jake.
And Jake.
Jake, you're gonna have your own booth now, okay? Anytime you want. So
Jake lives matter.
There you. Hello.
Jake's life matters. Go ahead.
So with that being said, when I went ahead and finally decided to make this, to venture down this very, very lonely road.
Well, restauranting. I had a restaurant too, and I've got the scars to prove it.
Well, let me tell you, and that's I want to say one of the biggest reasons I have this gentleman sitting next to me.
He eats a lot.
You know what? Outside of coming from a very large extended family, yes.
You're not supposed to say very large.
And he's in no way large.
Yeah, folks. Look, he's fun. Look
large.
at this. He's fun.
Yeah, there you go.
As I play hockey with this guy, right? He's overweight, and I'm always busting his chops. And he's a huge guy. He could beat the hell out of me. And a couple of weeks ago, he said, "I want you to meet two of my closest friends." And like an idiot, I said, "Which one's the baker and which one's the chef?"
And it's something because Rudy, when I got involved with Rudy, we were at that stage, like in anything that we do, where you're like, wow, where do I go and where do I take it from here? Mm-hmm. And the talks that he and I would have over that year of basically courting each other, we had come up with so many great things that we could do for Rockin' Ramen.
What makes it distinctive now? I mean, the soups, the dishes, the meats,
what makes
the noodles,
it distinctive now
the
is
Rudies.
The Rudies, the adding the ingredient of Rudy has been.
Do you have
tremendous.
a dish named Rudy's ramen or ramen?
Stop, because when we leave, that's all we will discuss.
Oh, okay.
But know this: when he walks through the door, all the chefs know that he doesn't say anything.
Wait a minute,
down.
he's the boss. In other words, day to day. I'm getting it now.
He is our day-to-day guy. Yes.
I was wondering why I had a nightstick. You will cook.
If you notice, we all have a lane.
Yeah,
we stay in that lane.
You will cook now.
You know what?
Or we will put you in the empty building next door.
No soup for you. Okay, no soup for you.
Go ahead.
So,
do you ever get beaten with a chicken leg, fella? No, I'm sorry. What's wrong with me? Go ahead.
So, some of the things that we did and some of the things that we focused on was consistency.
Yes.
Like with any restaurant.
But it's got to taste because I'm a habit. Like people say, you eat the same thing all the time. I like what I like.
Right. And the same thing happens here. What I did prior to Rudy was I took my Trinidadian heritage.
Oh, you're from Trinidad?
Yeah, my family's from Trinidad. That's where my roots are.
I worked with a guy from Trinidad. He used to call himself a tricky Trini. Did you ever hear that one?
Oh, really? Yeah. No. But I
Rudy
do know
likes that one.
But I do know a few. So I went ahead and took some of my parents' recipes, my grandparents' recipes, put them together.
How do you put that together with Rob? You're from
Well,
Trinidad.
that's
What do
just
they know
it.
about Asian noodles?
So this is what
they
happened.
traveled a lot.
I had the opportunity to meet the creative consultant for the movie The Ramen Girl
Okay.
prior to opening.
By the way, your eyes lit up again over this Murphy thing. You should be very careful. It's
Let me
Valentine's
tell
Day.
you.
You go home to do a noodle over the head.
You know, no. Everyone knows I love Brittany Murphy. If it wasn't for her and this movie, there would not be a rock.
That's
and
like
roll.
me with Kate Upton.
You know,
You know,
Yeah.
do you hate Justin Verlander or not? He makes $25 million a year and then he goes home to Kate Upton. That's just not fair. Talk about the haves and the have-nots.
well, let me tell you.
Anyway, sorry.
We
now
went
I'm
ahead,
in trouble.
No. I've got your back. Don't worry, I got it.
No, I want Rudy to have my back. Then
Yes,
I
you
feel
do.
better.
Yes,
yeah, I
you
want
do.
Rudy to have my back.
So with that being said, we had the creative consultant. He came in. And I said to him, he had never been to a Jamaican restaurant. And at the time, Mangoville was
Mangoville, yeah, I've had them on the air. They're good.
Mangoville was around. And I took him there for lunch, and I ordered oxtail. And
I was just going to say oxtail. I was going to bring up oxtail.
well, you know, hey, that is the staple. That's Rock and Ramen's staple. So I gave him the oxtail, and I said, I said to him during lunch, I said, hey, I'm thinking about putting that in a bowl of ramen. And
No, you did
he
not.
looked at me and he goes, what? He said the same thing. He said, no.
Did you do it?
You can't. So, a couple of weeks before we opened, painstakingly in my little apartment with my daughters, and we are and my fiance, and we are sitting there and we are just cooking. And I finally had the opportunity. This gentleman was going to come by the restaurant. And he came by and he said, so, did you do the oxtail ramen? And I'm like, yes, I did. I presented it to him. Now, unless you actually have seen the movie, okay, there's a scene where
We have to watch the movie,
You
Jim.
had a ramen master chef come into the restaurant and try the bowl that the young lady made, that Brittany Murphy made.
So now you have the oxtail in there, but what was around? Like the noodles
So
swimming
I
around
had
with it,
what I
like
did.
snakes in a.
I made the oxtail just as if it was going to be over rice. Okay, if you were going to
Okay,
have the
yeah,
oxtail
yeah.
minus
Okay,
the broth.
got it.
So I had the oxtail. I had carrots and corn and scallions, and I put fresh ginger in it, and then I took a little bit of the broth, and I just poured it into. I took a little bit of the gravy.
You
from
keep
the
talking
oxtail.
like food about this any longer, you're going to need a room.
Hey,
Be
not only
alone
that-
with yourself.
Not only that, hey,
Oh,
and
my
I expect
God.
you if I do a good job in
got
selling
3
you, I'll
more
see you at 12. So
I don't know
See
where
you
to
and
go
Jake
with
at 12
this.
o'clock.
Rudy, you better help me.
so he sits there and he looks at
Can
this
I ask
bowl.
you a question?
Yes.
How come you have a bicycle chain on your wrist?
I'm a motorcycle.
Oh,
driver.
okay, go ahead. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Yes.
He cooks with that.
That's another day.
This will
That's
keep
another
it al
day.
dente. It's hard. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. And go ahead. I'm sorry. I want to get to the chef part before we
yes.
go. We got about 3 minutes.
So very quick. He had the oxtail, and he was absolutely blown away. He said, Wayne, if you do this and you keep it the way you have it, you'll be the only one, and these are his exact words, you'll be the only one in the world that does a Caribbean-styled oxtail ramen.
You almost can't make it up, folks.
No.
Wayne Carrington is the owner, I guess, along with Rudy now, but Rudy's one of these quiet types in the back, making sure that I don't insult his boss or his partner. Now, you have opened a very successful restaurant here in New Rochelle, Rock and Raymond, down in right. Now, what's that? It's a small street there, right down
Yes,
by New York City. What's it
we're
called?
located on 19 Anderson Street.
Right,
We
19
are
Anderson.
between the Heritage Auto School, which has
Right,
been there, I guess, for 40 plus
8,000 years,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, across the street from Key Bank and some other eateries. And we are now with, and this is one of the really big things with Rudy that I just have to put out there. So now that Rudy and I have joined forces, Rock and Ramen is now franchised.
No kidding. Where else are you
Yes,
now?
we have sold our first franchise. Will be on East 187th and Arthur Avenue in the Bronx.
In the Boogie Down, but
Yes.
Arthur Avenue. It's known for
Yes.
Italian food, though, too.
Hey, guess what?
That's a great place because
Hey.
you got a lot of foot traffic.
Not only that, but we went ahead.
But
and
you
we-
throwing some tomato sauce? Is
No,
that what you
We
did?
created a shrimp scampi ramen.
Oh, God help me.
And for those ramen heads who are out there that understand this, it is a Mazeman ramen.
Do you know what I learned about oxtail, by the way? When I
Yes.
started many years ago, I was a board op and an engineer before I got on the air. I was on the air at the same time, I guess, on another show. And
Yes.
I was doing, and you may know the guy whose name I forget. You have to forgive me. He owns a vegetarian restaurant in the Bronx. But he did a show called the African Village Square about the evolution of the African American diaspora and in the Caribbean, and he told me he talked one night about why oxtail became so popular, because the slave masters ate all the good part of the
Right.
ox, and we got the tail. The
got
average
the-
folk
yes.
got the tail.
Hence chitlins.
But then,
and,
like most red-blooded men, I like tail. Except
you
I didn't
go.
know that the ox would be the tail that I liked. But I
Hey, now it's a lot safer. It's a lot
so
safer.
now, what do you? Yeah, a lot cheaper too.
Yes.
In fact, I don't know where to go with this, but in this case, you get to eat the oxtail. But then
Yes.
again, maybe
I
I got to go away from this now.
Here, the oxtail ramen has taken Rockin' Ramen when we opened in 2014. We actually won Best of Westchester.
I
Editor's
remember.
Choice.
Yeah, I was because I was
Yes,
on the air at that
yes.
Best of Westchester
Yes,
when you were there. I
yes,
did one of my
yes,
first remotes for WFAS at that time.
And I just have to put this out there that with Rudy and the city itself, we've had so much support from everyone, all of our patrons. It's become a very, very loyal following. We actually, since 2014, have been nominated every year for Best of Westchester.
I know that.
We've had 3 wins.
Bear with me while I do this.
We're
Keep
up
talking.
again. Yes, we're up
I
again.
got to remind someone to use a new number. Go ahead.
You're
be
doing what? You're shooting out there, come to Rockin' Ramen?
No, you got
Yeah,
to say
you
that.
got-
That's
you
your
got it.
job or
You
Rudy's
got
job. See, I like the way you guys team up. You say, please come to Rockin' Robin, and he says, come to Rockin' Robin or else.
That's right.
That's a good way to do it. Don't make me force this food down your throat.
No, not at all. Not at all. Please. But yes, we're at 19 Anderson Street in Rochelle, New York. I want to wish everyone out there today, all the beautiful young ladies, my mom who's out there listening
you
in
better.
Texas,
Yeah.
my lovely
Your
daughters.
mom is in Texas?
My mom and dad are in Texas.
She couldn't get further away enough from you. Did I'm so sick of
let me tell you
Oxtail and
something.
Robin.
My dad is pushing 80 years old. That
God
man
bless him.
retired 7 years ago from not 1 but 2 police departments.
He was a cop, too.
You know, my dad, 20 years in New York.
One last thing. I promised
Yes.
everybody I'm running late, and I know
Yes, yes, yes.
Dr. Sternberg's probably listening. Doctor, we'll get to you in a moment, but how in God's name did you become a chef? You were a cop and you flip burgers. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm the major chef because Rudy says I am.
You know what? This is what I learned.
Chef Wayne.
Chef Wayne. When I learned that, I was told
That's
that
like Bruce Wayne.
because I created a menu, okay, and this came from one of our other partners. His name is Sean, who's his brother. And Sean told
Sean's
me,
out in the car,
he
isn't
said-
he, with weapons?
He's out there. He's out there watching very closely. He's very, we got to guard the ramen chef and Rudy.
So keep going. I gotta remind this guy.
I ended up creating the menu for Rockin' Ramen, and because of that, his brother explained to me, "You're given the distinction of chef." So, this is what happened. One day, I'm sitting in the restaurant. This is real quick. Sitting in the restaurant,
go ahead.
someone walks in. We have never advertised at Rockin' Ramen. We've never advertised.
I've known that. Well, we're hoping you do here one day, but
every-
then we go ahead.
You got it.
Only if Rudy says it's okay. I don't get in
Well,
trouble.
back to your customer service piece, I was told, so long as you're giving great customer service, quality product, and a clean restaurant, they're going to come to you.
That's true, but you got to get your first guest.
Yes.
You know who did that? Hershey never advertised for years. They just went by their chocolate bar was so
Right.
famous, but finally they got other products and they
Yes.
had to compete. Nestle's came out and everybody else. Then they bought Nestle, so that's it.
So a young lady walks into the restaurant one afternoon. I'm sitting there by myself. She goes, "Hi, Chef Wayne?" And I went, "Okay." And she goes,
Chef Wayne.
"Would you mind doing a commercial with us, please? We're with Optimum." And I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't do commercials. I
Well,
don't
you could. You're glib
advertise."
enough.
Oh, thank you.
Rudy said you are. Whatever he said.
So
If Rudy says you could swim with dogs, I'm with you.
So am I. Hey, if Rudy says, Wayne, swim with dogs, we're going to make another cool meal. I'm swimming with dogs.
I'm sure when Rudy says sit down, you don't even look for furniture.
Oh, please.
Down I go,
You realize there's no chair behind me. I'm just squatting very well.
All right, where can we got to go.
Yes.
Give us the hours, the phone number.
Yes. So the hours are Monday through Thursday from 12 in the afternoon to 10 o'clock in the evening. On Friday and Saturday, we are from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. And on Sunday from 1 to 10.
Now, folks, if you go in with 15 minutes left, he's going to make sure it stays open or Rudy will get them.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Hey, Wayne, this has been great.
Hey, thank
Rockin'
you
Raymond
so
here
much.
in New Rochelle.
Really
This has been
appreciate
a
it.
ball.
Thank you, guys.
And I got to
Yes.
tell you, when someone comes in, it almost doesn't matter what you do to be so delightful and come in with us like this. By the way, when you next time you come in, we got to talk about. He's got beads on his wrist. He's got a bicycle chain. He's got another set of beads. He's got a watch the side of Rudy's head. And he's got a bowl of ramen on his shirt. So
thank you.
Thank you. And Rudy, actually, thank you very much for coming in. Also, you're a good sport.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
What's that? You'll see me later? No, I don't. Thank you very much. We got to catch up with Dr. Sternberg. We'll be right back. This is Radio Westchester. Stay with us. A lot more to come. All righty, we're running a tad late, but it's never too late for the great Dr. Victor Sternberg, and we're still going to get 20 minutes in. But first, we need to remind you that this interview is supported by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Aging Issues Management, and plug-in virtual reality. Now, this man has been in one way, shape, or form with me with the radio. He's been a well-known talk show host in his own right. Politics in Your Health, starring Dr. Victor Sternberg on WFAS, WVOX, and we're glad to have him for 20, 30 minutes every Friday. Running a bit late today because of some technical issues, so you will forgive us. But things are just about on schedule. Dr. Sternberg is a periodontist by trade, but he is involved in all aspects of medicine, preventive concerns being preventive, of course, and how the politics of this great nation affects your health. Dr. Sternberg, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Bob. I'm sure you've been busy talking politics and viruses.
Well, we were talking, but we also had like a light segment, and we were talking about food, and it was very funny. We had some very wonderful guests. But, Doctor, we took a couple of stories out to talk with you about, but I guess we should talk about the coronavirus. But one thing was that we got a report today that the flu is one of the worst flu seasons we've ever had, and it's being obfuscated, if you will, by the coronavirus.
Yes. Yeah. Many more people have died. Many more people have died of the flu this year, worldwide, than will die of this virus, at least in the foreseeable future. You know, it's man's constant battle with nature, and we struggle. You know, they are trying to come up with a universal flu vaccine that will take care of all the strains. And until that happens, we're going to be dealing with mutation, and we end up with this problem we have now. By the way, just a little aside, I got a notice from my dental supply company that provides me with masks, because all the masks, every patient we treat, we put a new mask on. And there's 5 of us treating patients. 2 nurses, myself, my 2 hygienists, every hour. So we go through 5 masks an hour minimally, and maybe more, and so that would bring us to probably about 40, 50 masks a day. I was told that the company that supplies us will only be able to supply us with 50 masks a month.
Why?
Because of what's going on, because there's a huge worldwide shortage of masks.
No kidding. It seems to me that some entrepreneur ought to be able to cook them up. Now, this isn't said lightly. Do you know in the National Hockey League, they're having a problem buying new sticks? Because the sticks are made in China, the new graphite sticks, and some of the factories that make them are closed to prevent the spread of the disease. Really interesting, the effect on the economy, Doctor.
People don't realize in this country how much of what we use comes out of China. There used to be China was a place that made, little cheap goods like years ago Japan did. And the world economy is so dependent, it's scary.
Well, it's interdependent. Interdependent would probably be the best word, but yes.
Yeah. Remember the old adage, America would catch a cold and the world would catch pneumonia? Well, now it seems to be going the other way around. And if this thing doesn't end soon, if God willing, this continue to escalate. God forbid, it becomes escalates and goes on. There's going to be some serious economic and worldwide ramifications, because much of the even something as basic as oil is so much consumed by the Chinese culture, Chinese people, that there's been a large drop in the price of oil that affects the economies in much of the world, particularly, Russia, Middle East, Iran. That has its own geopolitical ramifications. So, we better pray that they come up with a vaccine. Although it's interesting, I just read today that they started to desperately take the plasma from people who have recovered from the virus and are now injecting it into people with the virus to get the antibodies of the cured patients and giving them to the patients who are now sick.
That makes sense, actually. It truly does, Doctor. Apropos of that, this is going to shock you, and I've got to go there. A piece came across the wire this morning. This one televangelist is selling 125, what he calls the silver solution, that God will help cure the coronavirus for you. How do we let these people exist and not lock them up?
Well, the question is, why do we give them? This is the question of the struggle with freedom of speech, freedom of the airways. Was this online or was this in the news? Or was this actually?
It's like a televangelist. He was saying it on TV, telling people, well, that's like that guy that says for $1,000 you can get 1,000 blessings from God. I think if I ever I'm on the verge of losing everything, I'll just get a minister's license and raise money. It's a license to print money.
It's a real struggle to deal with freedom of expression and freedom of press, and people who use that to as a sham to either frighten or to rob people. Like we went through these evangelists, and they raised money. Remember the people that used to beg money, and they turned out they had feet of clay. It is a real. There should be some accountability. I don't believe that the unfettered access to selling things, snake oil, should be available on public.
But
media.
you could hide behind the cloth. I on one of the radio stations I worked at, we had a lot of ministers come in and do shows, and they all came in Cadillacs and Lincolns. I'm still scratching my head about that. Hey, Doctor, there was a piece, and you may have seen it. One of the things we're not looking at is they're concerned now about the swine flu making another comeback. I'm shocked that these stories are all being overwhelmed by the coronavirus.
Yeah. Well, it makes that which bleeds, as Fox News used to say, leads. And this story, it has some legs because, it is affecting more things. The other viruses are kind of pandemic. They occur all over the world. This being concentrated in one country and spreading so rapidly and affecting, things like me getting a mask. Russia selling oil. These have more geopolitical legs, so they get much more press. Individual human lives, I hate to say it, it's horrible that we think this way, become less important than the economic effects of a disease.
There was a piece in the New York Times today that when I read it, you could have written by a doctor, and I'm trying to get the right name. Oh, Miss Rosenthal, a journalist and physician, wrote it. And the title of the piece, Elizabeth Rosenthal, is "Who's Profiting from Your Outrageous Medical Bills?"
I read it. I was going to bring it up on the air.
Please do.
It was so interesting about these untoward bills that you get because of the system being gamed by insurers, hospitals, and physicians, so to guarantee their flow of income. It's a very interesting article, and it tells you a lot. And this is the essence of the struggle with changing the healthcare system. You have these very entrenched financial interests, and they are accustomed to and dependent upon a certain flow of income to maintain their establishment. And any changes that would occur are going to have a profound effect upon that.
Oh, yes.
The article that getting an ambulance, from one place to another.
Yes.
Where if it's not, they don't have an ambulance in your network. Locally, you're going to pay hundreds, not thousands of dollars. The insanity of being brought to the wrong hospital, that your doctor that's not a participating hospital having a heart attack because they're not in your network. These are the distortions that have occurred by having this segmented healthcare system where we have private, we have Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, VA insurance with limits, deductibles. We have networks, so you can only go to this doctor in the network, and doctors opting out. You have like a system whereby if the military ran this way, we would have been taken over a long time ago.
Well, again, the incentives, the way they're set up, most things are driven by incentives, and sometimes the incentives bring about a consequence that you didn't intend or want. What else is in your bag of tricks today?
Well, let me give you a couple examples along that line. Personally. So I have a condition called osteoarthritis of my shoulder, in which I have no cartilage between my right arm and my shoulder.
Is that from drilling from your work at all? Is that from using that arm? Just
that's
tennis?
from doing what you do. That's from doing all the things you and I have done. It's called being athletic.
Oh.
Years of serving tennis, lifting weights, doing push-ups.
Right.
And what happens is you wear out that cartilage. And now the bone-on-bone cannot be treated any other way but replacing my shoulder, which is going to be
That's complicated.
Probably get me out of practice. I will not do that, period.
Right.
But I am trying to get some alternatives. So I've had 2 steroid shots. They work very short period of time. I went down to special surgery to look into getting what's called a lubricant. It's it's a type of chemical that's manufactured. That
they shoot it into your joints.
My shoulder. Right. So they gave me, when I went there, they gave me a prescription pad with the name of a pharmacy in Canada. They said, order this drug in Canada because there it will only cost you $500, not covered by insurance. But if you buy it here in the States, it's $1,500. So I have to wait about a month to get this drug so they can get it and then administer it to me here at the hospital. But this is just another, a personal example. Same drug, maybe the same manufacturer probably. Me paying 1/3 the price by having to go outside my country, go through all kinds of a rigmarole, and I have the wherewithal to do that, to buy a drug that's going to save me 66% of the cost of the drug. And this all harks back to this system of healthcare. And I'm not going to become an advocate for the government taking over healthcare, because you and I know that everything else, the unintended consequences, are significant. And there was a very interesting article about, what happens in a system where the doctors would have to take a 25+% cut in pay, if not more, in order to be paid by Medicare. I mean, the reality is, whether you like it or not, private insurance pay significantly higher reimbursements to doctors and
true.
hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And that as you would expand the Medicaid base, so all the patients would come from Medicare, the doctors would be in a pickle. And the hospitals would be in a pickle because their structure is so built upon a certain stream of revenue to maintain their staffs, their buildings, it's very difficult to rebuild something that's already existed for decades. Just like it's much more difficult to build a building in Manhattan than it is in Sioux City, Iowa, where there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the candidates struggle with this and coming up with a system, the one thing that is completely devoid of conversation is the challenges that presents. It's very easy to say, it's like telling somebody, go out there and lose 50 pounds and do 12 miles of road work a week and you won't have any heart disease. Well, I'm afraid it's not so easy to do that for most people. And the bottom line is that until we have an intelligent conversation and all of the obstacles to change, we will never have change.
No, we're not. We're talking with Dr. Victor Sternberg, the longtime host of Politics in Your Health. He graces us every Friday for the 8:30 to 9 o'clock segment. Doctor, I saw a piece in the Week magazine, the Apolitical Aggregator, and this is the health scare of the week. Is second heart attacks if you have a paunch. You could even be skinny, but if you have a paunch, do we know what that connection is?
Well, there's something about the belly. There's something about the belly fat that seems to be more important than your love handles in terms of predisposing you to cardiovascular disease. And the whole area of the gut and what lives there and holding weight there, that whole view of medicine has completely been on the peripheral of all of our view of healthcare. And we're just beginning to learn about the effect of the bacteria in your gut and your gut in terms of how it affects your systemic health. And you're right about that. If a guy's got a belly, he's much more. The guy that's big and round all over is probably less of a risk of a heart attack statistically than the guy than the other guy.
They even gave numbers. For example, they said after accounting for such factors as smoking and diabetes, the researchers concluded that patients who were abdominally obese, which is to say a waist size of 37.6 inches or above, or 32 or more for women, were at greater risk. And what they did say is that possibly because men have more visceral fat, which sits around the organs. And we don't think of fat. We think of fat being external, but I didn't realize as much that.
No, it gets, when I do periodontal surgery and I take out some tissue from a patient's palate underneath the palate to do a gum graft, I have to trim, half the time is spent trimming the fat that's under your skin and your mouth.
Really?
So I'm telling you, in fact, it's this endemic. It permeates all parts of your body. And, we get back again, the conversation is dull but very meaningful, that we are dealing with the tip of the iceberg and understanding why some people get sick and some people do not. It's like those 5 wise men and the elephant that are blind. Everybody sees only one little piece of the puzzle. And the whole puzzle is much more complicated. And this is a good example. Getting back, this is, again, personally, as we were speaking, I had just had a conversation with my friend's daughter, who is a Columbia Presbyterian.
Yes.
Undergoing now his 5th surgery on a leg that was amputated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So today he went in to have the stump reshaped because it was irregular, it didn't heal well. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, when they got out of the OR, they discovered he had an infection, and that little stump, that's all he's got left, is to his hip, and they have to put a drain in, and he's going to be there for more weeks. And I'm going to tell you, let me just this is an important story, and I know I'm running over, but listen.
No, that's okay, doctor. Go ahead.
This is very important, looking at medicine, what's right for the patient, what the patient wants, and what is right for society, and ultimately the patient. So when my friend first had his cancer 27 years ago, he had was given 2 choices because they had a new technology that involved replacing the bones in his body with with of titanium rod because they could do that, because they were able to do that. They gave him that choice. Okay, now traditionally they would have had only one choice: to cut the leg off just above the knee. Okay, he would have gotten a prosthesis 27 years ago. He would have learned to walk. His career would have been uninterrupted, and he would have not been in the hospital today. Because of that decision to make this rod, which did not have long-term evidence that it was going to be effective without complications.
Wow.
He, over the next 20 years, had 12 different procedures done on his leg because it got infected multiple times. It ended his career. He was on intravenous antibiotics for 6 months to deal with MRSA that got into the leg. 8 years ago, it got loose, this rod, and his doctor at special surgery begged him to take it out and take his leg off. And because he said, if you put another one in and it gets infected, you'll have nothing to put a stump on. He declined. They put another rod in, which eventually got infected. But worse than that, it developed, because of the poor circulation, a tumor.
Well, that's the biggest thing here, the
leg.
poor circulation. Go ahead.
The leg was amputated after 2 attempts to clean out the infection. And now the leg is off, and he's still being treated for cancer that spread to his lungs in the leg that should have been off 27 years ago. And he's now getting more treatment for an infection that occurred after they took the leg off. We totaled his total medical bill, $5 million.
Oh, my God. And just for one bad decision.
One bad decision that was not based upon a long-term study, because somebody could do it. It was done. And as a result, the patient's life has been horrendously, the quality of this man's life as he limps around, he's got nothing there below his hip.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
Who knows if he's going to make it. Okay, the pain and suffering and the cost to our society. And this is where we get into this issue of what is appropriate and what do you want, but what is medically and economically appropriate. And people will say, well, we're going to have death panels. Let me tell you, as a dentist, just to give you a very kind of different view of it, much less significant. You know, I work in a school and I teach students, and I'm constantly, pleading about let's save teeth, because you know what, if a tooth, you get another 10, 15, 20 years out of a tooth, it's one less thing you have to deal with, okay? There's such a push to out these teeth and put implants in. The problem is, just like my poor friend, when the implant fails, which it does occasionally, you have no recourse. There's nothing left. Half the jawbone's gone.
Yeah, you've already done
and
corrective stuff.
Because technology and economics dictate the treatment without the long-term look, you end up with losing part of your jawbone, or in the poor case of my friend, certainly will lose his mobility and has lost much of his livelihood, much of his life.
God bless you, friend. God bless your friend, and I hope he gets better. Doctor, thank you very, very much. Dr. Victor Sternberg, we'll talk with him again next week. We're going to talk with Evelyn Farkas in just a moment. She's running for, in fact, you hear that now, she is running for Nita Lowey's seat. Very interesting candidate. We're going to talk with her in just a moment. Again, Evelyn Farkas, what a background. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. She was an expert for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia. What an appropriate time to do that. First, our last look at the weather, and then we will talk with the candidate. It is now 31 degrees. It's going to stay about that most of the day today. Sunny. Tonight getting down to 10. Tomorrow things ease up a little bit. More sunshine. We'll have sunshine tomorrow. Temperatures in the mid-30s, and it begins to warm up as we get into Sunday. The temperature will be 44 degrees and more sunshine. The weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. The bottom of the hour is also, rather the top of the hour, in our long-form interview with the candidate is brought to you by Aging Issues Management. Again, our friends at United Hebrew, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug In. virtual reality. And as we come up at 9:05, literally right on time, and they've been trying to get in, and they are with us. Evelyn Farkas, a little bit about her. Previous to her position at the Defense Department, she was a senior fellow at the American Security Project, where she focused on stability and special operations, counterproliferation, and U.S. Asia policy. And in 2008, she served as executive director of the congressionally mandated Commission on the Prevention of Weapons and Mass Destruction. She's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. She has the International Institute for Security Studies and Women in International Security Studies. She's on the advisory board for the Harold Rosenthal Fellowship in International Relations. I could go on and on. She is a Chappaqua resident, and she worked for the presidents, particularly President Barack Obama. Please welcome, without further ado, obviously she's a Democrat, and she'll be in the primary to seek out District 37. That is the seat held by Nita Lowey. Please join me in welcoming Evelyn Farkas. Oh, no, we lost her. I hope she calls back. Please join me in welcoming. I must have pressed the wrong button when I put her on, and I do hope she calls back. What an interesting background. And there we go, and hopefully I will hit the right button. And hopefully she was listening and knows that I've already introduced her. Once again, please welcome Evelyn Farkas. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Bob?
Very well. Now, I know that we had a little trouble connecting you because of a previous guest and a couple of crosswires, so my apologies. But I've already given your background, the jobs that you've done, the titles that you've had, particularly your most recent Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia. First of all, congratulations and all my best in terms of running for office for Nita Lowey's seat. That's number one. And number two,
Thank you.
I ask this of everyone. I guess the right title would be to call you Assistant Secretary. Everyone who runs for office, they could be running for a small city council seat or President of the United States. Why do you want to do this to yourself with such an extraordinary background and expertise?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I really feel like this is not a normal moment in our history. It's an all-hands-on-deck moment, and I feel compelled to offer my experience, my passion, my national profile to my community, and then beyond that to the country. I really am concerned about the state of our nation. You know, as you know, Bob, I'm running to protect the American dream, and it's in part about our political freedom, our rule of law, but it's also about our economic security, and we are not doing as well as we should be in America today and in the district.
Now, you mentioned economic security because so many other things are going on, the differences between the way this president now in office behaves, et cetera, as compared to others and some of the other things we see. We don't hear a lot about economic security. If you could expand on that.
Yes, I mean, essentially what the president has done is, first of all, create a feeling of fear and a lot of, pointing fingers at other people. But essentially, every day he's attacking our health care. I mean, if you feel like your health care might be taken away or that it's going to keep getting more expensive for you to buy prescription drugs, you feel economically under attack by this president. So that's the first thing. I mean, he's attacking our fundamental right to affordable, accessible health care. Second, when it comes to infrastructure, he's doing nothing to invest in the infrastructure. We see this driving around Westchester and Rockland, and it's an abomination. Infrastructure, of course, is the foundation for everything else, how people get to school, how they get to their jobs. The president also fails to do anything about gun safety, which, again, is related to our economic security, because certainly if you're worried and you're spending time and money on drills and security for your schools and your streets, you're not putting money into economic development and small business.
Well, that's
so
correct.
There's a whole host of things. And then, of course, the tax scam. For all of us living here in New York, we're experiencing the result of Trump's tax legislation, which has put a cap on the deduction you can take on state and local taxes. And, Bob, that is actually going back on a covenant on a sacred deal that was made when our federal government first instituted the income tax at the federal level. They said you can take a deduction for state and local taxes. And again, this president has just taken an attack. This is an all-out attack, I would say, on the working and middle-class people in our district.
Well, I'm glad you were able to reference that. I want to roll back the tape just a little bit, and thank you for that, because now I understand your point about economic security. But your background, in fact, I'm a little annoyed with myself. When I was researching for your visit, I kept hitting myself in the head because I love the work that you do and have done, and have some other guests on. But you should have been on this show regularly talking about it. Now, folks, just a little bit, for those of you who
I'll come back on.
No, please do, but just a little bit more, so you'll bear with me. You, of course, have a PhD from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. You're fluent in Hungarian and German. You went to Franklin and Marshall for your BA, and you got your MA from Fletcher as well. But your jobs in the Defense Department and the different commissions on weapons of mass destruction and so forth, you have, and this is my concern about the current State Department as well, and the Pentagon, you have what can, inarguable, whether you're elected or not, an extraordinary resume as someone who understands foreign relations and national security. How and why do you think that the State Department has been hollowed out the way it has been? And why do you think this president, and I'm not trying to throw red meat here, but why do you think he doesn't listen to the people with your kind of expertise? And it's not a coincidence that I mention it, because you also are an expert on of defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia.
Right. I mean, first of all, yeah. So this president and the people who back him, because it's important to note, it's not just the president. Steve Bannon, all these other people, that obviously the members of the Republican Party in Congress, they have all essentially said, we refuse to listen to the experts. They are degrading and attacking expertise in our society, which is really dangerous, because the Russians, exactly as you alluded to, use that. You go on Facebook and you find something that looks like a news article, except that it's not. It's propaganda. It's some group that wants you to believe, for example, that there's no climate change. So, or that Hillary Clinton, isn't going to do anything to help African Americans, so don't vote, which happened in 2016. So, the president is attacking expertise because he's afraid of the experts, because the experts will point out that climate change is occurring and that it's going to get worse and it will be a catastrophe if we don't take action. And the experts in the intelligence community are pointing out that the Russian government is not the friend of the American people. The Russian government is trying to throw our elections to benefit them in the Kremlin. So, unfortunately, it's very dangerous, because even after the president leaves, there will be people left thinking, well, I'm not sure if I should listen to the experts. We need to really renew our emphasis on expertise. I am heartened a bit by the impeachment hearings, because we saw those experts who got out and testified from the State Department and elsewhere in our U.S. government, the people I call the patriotic state, and they helped us understand what was going on.
We're talking with Evelyn Farkas. She's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia, or at least she was until 2015, and has held many other distinguished positions in Congress and into think tanks, if you will. A national security expert, certainly in her own right, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. It seems to me that someone with your expertise, and you certainly wouldn't be the first and won't be the last, you're going to leave the realm of, and this is one of the complaints that people have, and I'd like you to speak to it, not about you, but in general. You're going to leave the world of empirical, to the extent that research can show that, and investigation can show that, of the empirical world of facts into the political world of how things look, optics, and I'm going to put this in quote, politics, quote unquote. One of my favorite guests, the political scientist, Jeannie Zaino, and I often say to her, Professor, every time you say that's just politics, it's like saying it's okay to lie. That's going to be a leap for you. How are you going to manage that?
Well, Bob, I'm 52 years old. I can't change who I am and how I am. I've always spoken and acted based on my conviction, based on my values, what I think is right, and that's what I'm going to do. And hopefully, the people of the district will respect that. Hopefully they'll elect me based on that. And as I work for the people of the district to try to get things done in Washington, I expect that it will work. I really do believe that sincerity and having ethics and principles and values is something that the American people, and certainly the people of this district I know, want very much in their representatives. Nita Lowey has espoused that for her 30 years in Congress. So I don't see a problem with going into politics so long as you stick to your values.
And Assistant Secretary, I must say, people are craving that if it can be achieved. A little bit more about you. Why did you choose? I mean, you didn't become a math teacher or work in advertising. You chose a very difficult but very interesting field of study. Anything in particular? I know your dad was an author, Charles Farkas. What about that? What drove you to this kind of career, to be an expert?
Bob. Yeah. My dad actually only became an author in his 70s, or maybe even 80s. He wrote the book in the 70s. He was for 30 years Briarcliff Manor's public library director. My mom was a hospital pharmacist. But more importantly, the two of them fled communist Hungary in 1956 after the revolution failed. And they came to America. They met later and settled in Westchester, where they raised me and my three siblings. And I very much grew up understanding, number one, things could always get worse in this world, because that's what had happened to my parents growing up. And number two, that I was very grateful that this country and its people, and of course my community in the district in Westchester, had taken in my family and taken my parents and given us so much opportunity. I actually didn't speak English when I went to kindergarten. I was 4 years old, and I learned English. And so I always lived in kind of this one world inside my parents' home, and also going back to Hungary later on, to communist Hungary. So I think I understood that there were different worlds that were not as good as America. And granted, America was never perfect. It's still not perfect. But the best thing about America is that we always strive to do better. And so I wanted to help my country. I wanted to serve in government, and I wanted to serve in the international arena, so in work on national security and foreign policy.
Do you know, again, I'm looking over your resume and what you've done. Now, that makes sense that you've done that. Again, dealing in this imperial and factual world, and this is selfish, because sometimes doing the news that I do, I become very frustrated. Now, as someone who's an expert in the Ukraine, as someone who's an expert in the Balkans, and I'm thinking of these last many years, and in Russia, the information that came out about the Ukraine during this whole issue of the president saying that it's the Ukraine that hacked the election, not the Russians, the Biden's role, the role of corruption there. How frustrating is it for you knowing those things, but yet to hear what you hear?
I mean, I find it not only frustrating but disgusting, because it's the Russian line. The Russians are trying to blame Ukraine. And let's make this really clear. The Ukrainian people rose up, they went to the streets against their government, which was for a while kind of telling them that they would join the European Union, and suddenly their government swung towards Moscow, and the people of Ukraine, they wanted to join the European Union. That's why they went and demonstrated. Their government, the Kremlin-friendly crony, shot at the people, killed over 100 people, in the streets of Ukraine. When the international community intervened to try to broker an agreement, that guy, the Russian-backed guy, was still on the scene, and we brokered some kind of agreement which would allow them to go to elections and allow the people to achieve what they wanted, which again was alignment with the West. And the Russian-backed guy lost his nerve and fled to Russia. And from there on, the Russians then tried to blame Ukraine and tried to essentially continue to derail Ukraine's attempts to defend its territory and its democracy, because as we know, the Russians then invaded Ukraine, they stole Crimea, they're still occupying Crimea today, which was not recognized by the United Nations. They had a very resounding vote saying that Russia cannot keep Crimea. And then, of course, there's an ongoing war where over 11,000 people have died, roughly to date, in another part of eastern Ukraine, which is completely led by the Russian government. So the Russian government is interested in having Ukraine in its sphere of influence and weakened. Now, some people might say, well, why do we care? Because the Russian government will not stop with Ukraine. They will then try to achieve influence and dominance over other states in Europe, including states that are NATO members, and you see where this can lead. Ultimately, the United States could get involved in a war with Russia if we don't stand our ground right now, today, and every day when it comes to Ukraine.
Very, very interesting. Once again, we're talking with Evelyn Farkas. She is running in the Democratic primary, and that's in June, folks, this year. She hopes to take over the seat, the 37th district of the now retiring Nita Lowey, and there's no question that she's accomplished so much in foreign policy. It's worth talking about another assignment that you have. Those of us who remember all the troubles in Bosnia and the wars there in the Balkans. Now, you served as a human rights officer for the Organization of Security and Cooperation there. What a job to have at that period of time. Human rights, it seemed to me that were being violated in a banner way. What was that like? And then you even became the election supervisor. What was that like, and what happened in the Balkans, and why is it still problematic?
Yeah, I mean, Bob, it was really one of the most impactful jobs I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I went over there. I was responsible for trying to chronicle what the aftermath, so it was the immediate aftermath of the war when the first wave of civilians went in, and to try to protect some of the people who remained vulnerable. There was I was in one of those safe areas that actually was spared. The people weren't all obliterated, but there were mass murders, and I went on something called an exhumation, and I'll never forget this, where you go to the site of where people were killed, and in this case it was up in the hills in the forest, because the people had fled from their houses in the middle of the night hoping the killers wouldn't follow them, and they had followed them into the woods. And there, among the piles, the kind of the scattered bones in the dirt, I'll never forget seeing this small pink parka. It was a little winter coat of a little girl who had been murdered there with her family in the woods. And you just think to yourself, like, in the middle of the night, they put on their coats, they went into the forest, they thought they could hide, and then they were murdered.
Oh, my goodness.
And something like that, the fact that people could do that in the 1990s, was shocking to me, because I had gone to graduate school to try to, make the world safer, to try to prevent the world wars from coming back and the Holocaust and all of that. And then to see this in person was really shocking to me, for lack of a better word. And when I went to Washington and worked then in the Senate on the Armed Services Committee, I was determined that we would do what we could with our military might, we Americans, to keep America safe from such things, but also to try to prevent another Bosnia, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. Again, as you can tell, I did a little bit of research, and I was thinking about when I saw that you had this job, I was looking at my own bookcase, and there was this little section where there was the rape of Nanking. Then someone you're going to die in the morning, about what happened in Rwanda, and then the ethnic cleansing in the Balkans. What is it like to see that this is still alive after the Holocaust, after Never Again? Ethnic cleansing is still a means to power. Why does it still exist in this day and age? And, the Balkans, it's not like they're an unsophisticated group of countries. They had decent economies. They, of course, they've always been in the center of world issues. But why does this still exist? Is it, the old adage is people do what works, but why?
Well, I think it's because we have irresponsible politicians and leaders. Ethnic conflict, nationalism, anti-Semitism, these are ways, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, but these kinds of, this rhetoric is how you begin the process that could lead to genocide. And I know that sounds to some people very alarmist, but it's true.
It is true.
The way you start is by creating an us and a them. And a lot of times it happens when there's change in society. So we're experiencing right now a big change in our society with social media, with artificial intelligence, and some jobs, eventually in, 10, 20 years, people who will make their living driving, for example, likely won't have those jobs, right? So all of this change creates a lot of insecurity in people, on top of course, what I mentioned before, the president's attacks on our economic security. Then you create the other. And it's really, it's the opposite of patriotism. It's this rabid populist nationalism. And it is not good. Don't let the president lead you astray. It's great to be American and to stand up for our values and our Constitution, but you cannot define yourself as some kind of ethnic something or the other against another group. And again, this is why I think we all need to be on the lookout. In our district, we had those horrible Hanukkah stabbings in Rockland County, and that was an anti-Semitic attack. And it was done because you have irresponsible politicians, including the president, not standing up and saying anti-Semitism is wrong, not standing up and saying the people in Charlottesville who were demonstrating and who were using anti-Semitic language and racist language are wrong. There's no right there. And again, I think it's a very dangerous politics that leads ultimately to ethnic conflict. Again, the instance in Rwanda, it started with radio whipping up frenzy and anti-Tutsi sentiment.
And although it's interesting, that country is an interesting study, I'm sure, for someone like you because of the comeback that it's made. What's interesting about it, because I was involved in an organization dealing with the Rwanda issue, that women in many ways, and this is maybe an aside, but women have done a lot of the heavy lifting to put that country back on its feet. I'm sure we don't talk enough about that because half the men were out fighting battles while they were at home holding the fort. This all leads to what's going on in the United States today. And again, as we move into the second half of this discussion, what will differentiate you perhaps from the other people running? We attack the press. The current administration attacks the press. There is this otherness. There was this failure to call out, as you said, in Charlotte. That whole phrase, blood and soil, was all about what the Nazis were trying to use to differentiate themselves from everybody else. It was to be anti-Semitic. It was totally anti-Semitic. So the world is this way, and we see this. Look, I'm not saying that the United States is going to become what Germany was. It was a very special set of circumstances, but we should be wary of this, should we not?
Yes, Bob, I don't know that it's that special because, human nature is a steady something, unfortunately. And bad leaders can take advantage of our human nature and steer humans in a very dark way. And what I would commend, not to sound like a book club here, but, people read In the Garden of the Beast. It's written like a novel, and it's about 1930s when Hitler was coming to power. And all the excuses that we hear people making about President Trump today, he's going to get better. These anti-Semitism, this is just one attack. It's not going to continue. He doesn't really mean it. All of these things occurred back then. They're all the excuses people use to excuse something that's not normal.
I was going to call you professor, although I know you're that too, but assistant secretary, you've done so many different things.
I taught Marines.
I know. Where we want to, again, whether you win, well, if you win, you'll be busy, but if you don't win, I will gain something from that as well, because we're preparing a podcast here that studies the evolution of anti-Semitism in Germany from around the time of the end of World War I right up to what happened in the Holocaust, called Never Again, by the way. You would be a great reference for that. But that's just totally selfish on my part. We can move on. 9:27, we're talking with Evelyn Farkas, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, the Ukraine, and Eurasia. And a line from one of my favorite movies is, she's read books, That's from Beckett, Jean Louis Beckett. Let's go now to your running for Congress. Let's look at the issues, because a lot of the issues internationally, I don't think anyone's going to compete with you. But let's see what differentiates you from the field as you head towards your primary. Again, we can just put in the books, check all the boxes, international studies, language, everything else. We have issues in this country regarding health care. We have issues regarding infrastructure. We have issues of separation of church and state, which have become muddled. What will define your time in Congress and obviously in this seat here in Westchester County and Rockland?
Right. I mean, Bob, well, first of all, I already mentioned, the need to go back and take down this tax scam legislation that President Trump has passed. We need to start with new legislation that likely has higher tax brackets for the multi-millionaires we need to then take that money and put it into a public option for health care, into green infrastructure. Make no mistake, the number one issue for all of us needs to be the climate crisis. It's not just international and national. We see it every day in the rising level of the Hudson. You know, the Piermont Marsh has had an issue for a long time with flooding and the ecosystem there. We need to address that. On this side of the Hudson, of course, people have been having sewage flooding their backyard for a long time.
Yep.
That's part of a need to address infrastructure, make it more green, make it more sustainable, to mitigate the impact of climate change, and then transfer to renewable energy. In addition to that, of course, we can talk about Indian Point, because the federal government needs to take a much more heavy-handed oversight and investment approach to closing of Indian Point.
Well, certainly. A couple of other things that we need to take a look at. There are those who will challenge you, and we've had some of them on the air, who, for lack of a better way to put it, I can't find the right words, who are young, new, very left-leaning, and quite frankly, some of them hope to just simply capitalize on that AOC phenomena. And it seems to me it'll be necessary for you to differentiate yourself from that, or even can we, to be fair?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, Bob, I think experience matters. I think people in this district do not want to send people to Congress who are going to be having to find their way around to figure out how to legislate, to meet colleagues for the first time. You know, I have already legislated for 7 years at the federal level when I worked for Carl Levin on the Senate Armed Services Committee.
Yes.
I already know chairs and ranking members in the House of Representatives and the Senate. So I think people of this district want someone with experience. And I have the same values as the younger folks who are running in the race. So I don't think there's any loss for them. In fact, it's a gain if they were to pick me as the horse to bet on.
Well, that is a differentiating factor. How much pushback do you expect to get that you're a member of, quote unquote, the establishment and not to the left enough? Will that affect your decisions, or will it would appear to be centrist inclinations hold?
I'm sort of laughing because, you know, people see me here as not an establishment candidate. I did not rise up through the party ranks
I know,
as
yeah.
some of the other as many of the other candidates have. I'm completely like the candidates, the one candidate, I guess, slightly to my left. You know, I am absolutely an anti-establishment person from the perspective of the party folks here. You know, so
yeah, no, I do understand
that.
Right, I do understand that. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, so I would say what I bring is experience and expertise. I bring judgment. I bring empathy. I think that's really important. You know, my parents worked very hard. You know, as I probably mentioned, or I often mention, you know, my mother had 3 jobs to put me through college. I still had to take loans, which took me 20 years to pay off with the help of the student government. So I know what it's like for people to need help from their government and their community. And that's another important aspect of Nita Lowey's, you know, tradition and legacy that I aim to carry on, which is not just her good record legislating, but also her great work helping constituents in Rockland and Westchester.
Do you anticipate, or have you had any key endorsements yet that you want to share with us?
I'd love to. So my latest one I'm very proud of is one of the former presidential nominees, the presidential nominee in 2004, Secretary John Kerry, former Secretary of State, of course, as well. Also Senator Carl Levin, Senator Bob Graham, former governor of Florida.
Wow.
I also have Tom Malinowski, sitting member of Congress. I have a couple more coming up that I can't mention yet, but it includes several other members of Congress. I have a Hollywood one coming up.
Oh, really?
But I'll let you know when they're public.
Oh, come on. This would have been a lot of fun. Evelyn Farkas, again, I should say, Madam Deputy Assistant Secretary. You know, I used that phrase before, and I just want to clear why. When I say establishment, that you've actually had experience with in these different roles as a Deputy Secretary of State and so forth. But yes, I want to differentiate for the purposes of clarity. You've not been the classic, I've been an assemblyman, a state senator, I've worked for one or other of these people, and now I'm going to the next level. It's quite a different role. And now, having said that, some of the issues that are out there from the far left, for example, are knock down the borders. Now, you're someone who deals with security. Don't have any borders. Totally forgive debt. Totally give health care for free. Now, they're all noble ideas, but where do you weigh in on those?
Yeah. So first of all, we need comprehensive immigration reform. Mm-hmm. And before that, we need to outlaw, we need to pass a law preventing the abomination that is family separation and the forced, orphanization of children. That's just an atrocity that the United States has committed. Second, we need to absolutely make it a priority to establish legal protection to all the dreamers. I sit on a college board, actually. You mentioned my college before, Franklin Marshall College. We have dreamers. We do everything we can to protect them. So I am very much in favor of immigration reform. I can talk more about that, but I'll just leave it at that and say, of course we need borders. We can't let people in willy-nilly. We've always had borders, but we have processes, we have international law that we have to abide by, and this administration is refusing to do that at great risk to our reputation and really the fabric of our society, because we rely on immigration in this country for economic advancement, and it is really what makes us special. On the other issues, I would say, I mentioned earlier, we need a public option. But I do not want to tear people's, private health care out of their hands when many people believe that their private health care systems are working for them. And many people have existing, health care issues that they feel are being managed appropriately. So I see no reason to suddenly place them in jeopardy. So we can create a public option and move towards making health care affordable and accessible for more people as fast as possible. I don't remember what the other issue was, but
the other issue is
tuition.
Is what can we do, because
tuition, yes.
There's two ends to the story.
It's absolutely a fact that the cost of college has risen astronomically since I was in college in the 80s, and as I mentioned, I still was very burdened for a long time with student debt.
20 years.
So we need to do something. I'm sorry?
No, you said 20 years. I was just underscoring it for our
exactly.
listeners. Pardon me.
So we need to do something as a society to address this, inflation in the price and then the burden on our young people with regard to student debt and student loans. And part of it will probably involve putting federal funding into community colleges, so making more college accessible and affordable to young people, giving more options than the very expensive options that people are forced to turn to right now. So I do believe we need to look very closely and come up with some options, including at the federal level, to address the crisis we have right now in education, higher education, and to say nothing of the crisis that we are facing at the primary level, because that's probably just as acute, if not more acute, because that's the basis of our economic and our social contract with Americans.
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time talking about it on this program. This is a selfish question on behalf of listeners of all political stripes. Given the huge division in the country politically, and particularly at the extremes, can we be, you've got the background, you're a formidable candidate, that is beyond question. Will the center hold? Will democracy work? Will this administration or any administration that gets carried away with its power, will our system be able to rein that in? Because there's a sense among the callers that everything is rigged, in the sense that we load up the Supreme Court. We have a Justice Department that arguably has become a defender of the president. Now, it's not unprecedented. We have Bobby Kennedy. We've had others who, Mr. Mitchell, who really were in that vein. But will the center hold? Will our democracy save itself from tipping?
I believe that it can, Bob, if citizens remain engaged, alert, if they continue to demonstrate, if they vote. I mean, voter turnout, actually, here's my moment to say, please, registered Democrats in particular, because you have a chance to pick your member of Congress on June 23rd. And if you deny yourself and all of us your voice in that, it's a real loss for democracy. So, but the more we have, the more participation we have, that's what makes America special, and that's what makes the center hold.
And that's what you believe will do it. Okay, I do this with every candidate as well. There's my initial question of why do you want to do this to yourself? Because you do realize, and I'd ask you to comment about that, you're going to be called names. They're going to look at every decision you've ever made and question it. Even though you are a progressive in so many ways, you're going to be called an old fuddy-duddy and you're not, of the establishment. Now, you've got to have to put up with all that. I hope are you prepared for the thick skin that requires?
Yes, absolutely. And an open heart, because, people, when they attack you, maybe they're doing it out of their fear. Maybe they're doing it because they don't know you and they think they know you. I get Twitter attacks constantly. But listen, Bob, I've stood up to the Kremlin, constant attacks from Kremlin and the far right. Uh-huh. I was one of the first people to go on national television and call out what the Trump people were doing with the Kremlin and with the Russians. Mm-hmm. And I was attacked. I've been attacked since then for years now. The Republicans hauled me up and made me testify because they thought I was a leaker. None of this stops me. None of this silenced me.
That's great.
I know who I am. I know why I'm doing this. And I'm absolutely ready for it.
Okay. So now we go to what is always my final question again, from dog catcher, and we're going to have you on again, by the way, from dog catcher to presidential candidate. I'm in the booth on the 23rd. Now there are 10 candidates. I don't know how many are going to survive till then, but why should I, and you take as much time as you want before you go, why should I pull the lever, or anyone else, for Evelyn Nicolette Farkas?
Yeah, because we have a choice here. We are losing an experienced member of Congress with Nita Lowey, somebody who has national stature and legislates. She's the chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee. We can replace her with some very good person who doesn't have the experience legislating at the federal level, who doesn't know the players, doesn't know the members of Congress, the chairman, ranking members, who doesn't understand the national environment and what's at stake. Or you can pick me. I have the experience. For 7 years, I already legislated at the federal level when I worked on the Senate Armed Services Committee staff. I have the national stature from 4 years coming out of the Obama administration, talking on MSNBC and explaining to Americans why the issues of the day were important, right? I can stand up and talk about the Piermont Marsh, the airport traffic, in Westchester, the rising level of the Hudson, affordable housing in Westchester and Rockland, and the national media will pay attention because they know me, they trust me. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, my empathy. I will work hard for these constituents because I know what it's like to work hard. I grew up working hard myself. So these are all reasons to pick me rather than someone else who seems perfectly fine but won't make a mark and from day one make a difference for the district.
Wow, that's a lot. I wish you the very best. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we send you on your way? Again, we will invite you back. Please do.
Yes, because there's a lot of information, as you mentioned, that we're throwing out at you. Go to my campaign website. It's Evelyn, my first name, Evelyn, then the word FOR, NY, the initials of our great state, Evelyn4ny.com. Go on the website. You can find out all about me. You can contribute small amounts, large amounts, volunteer. We're very excited to get going this spring.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the time, and I do hope you will come back. I know we took you through a labyrinth of different things. I thought people should know.
I promise, Bob.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you so much. Evelyn Farkas, everyone. She's running for the 37th District in the primary on June 23rd, the Democratic primary.
17th, Bob. 17th.
Yes. Did I say the 23rd? I'm getting old. I'm sorry.
17th
The 17th.
District.
And as you can say, she gets it right. If you screw up, she'll fix it for you. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate all your time today. Evelyn Farkas, everyone. And now I must say, because she's off. We took her off. What an impressive woman. People that put all this effort in, 20 years to pay off our college debt. Wowee. All righty then. We have people to thank, not the least of which is the three-hatted Jake Schaefer. he set up, and I want to thank him for this, he set up that absolutely fun interview we had with the people from Rock and Ramen, and also his sports stuff and the other work that he's done. Thank you, sir. We need to thank the guests today: Vince Russo, Anthony's Call, Janelle Albert, and Steve Callis, of course, the chef from Rock and Ramen, and his buddy Rudy, Dr. Victor Sternberg, and of course our congressional candidate Evelyn Farkas. We also wish to thank United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhdc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio. Dominic's Fine Cigars. Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuentes and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. And plug-in virtual reality. And don't forget the law firm of Pena and Khan. Monday, we have some other candidates coming on for you. We have some surprise candidates who will meet with us at 7 o'clock. Vince Russo joins us. Of course, the county executive, George Latimer, and Bob Cox. Now, we will try for Monday also to squeeze in and get some time for A.J. Woodson. We know that things have relit like a bunch of smoldering embers. Things have relit in Mount Vernon, where once again the focus of all the issues is the controller, the elected controller in Mount Vernon, and her conflict with the new mayor now, Sean Patterson Howard. I want to thank everybody for listening. We're getting out of here a little early today. We're going to make sure we shop for Valentine's Day, and you too should do that. Thank you for listening. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. Remember, you can go to MyTuner Radio and put right on your phone right now, Mornings with Marrone, Mornings with Bob Marrone. You can click on RadioWestchester.com, and each and every day you can watch us and or listen to Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope. Also listen on iTunes Radio. We're also available on iHeartRadio. Have a great day, everybody. Right now it's 31 degrees. Going to get down to 10 tonight, so dress appropriately when you go out to that holiday dinner. Bye-bye. See you Monday.